Chapter 993. After killing all the assassins in the surroundings, the three of them could only find another place to settle down. In another part of the forest, there was a bonfire, and the three of them sat beside it. Both Lu Yurong and Shao Qi took off their white veils. One of them had a charming face, while the other had a pure and beautiful face. Both of them were good at their own game, and it was hard to tell who was better. The surrounding air became much fresher. King Ping has relinquished his military authority. I heard that you were the one who persuaded him. Lu Yurong tossed a piece of firewood into the room and dusted her hands. Then she looked at Chu Li with her beautiful eyes. Chu Li sat opposite her. Who said that? What do you think? Lu Yurong said. Chu Li pondered for a moment before he shook his head. It's not my fault. King Ping is disheartened and doesn't want to fight at the border anymore. He's tired of it. He's killed so many Li Dynasty's cavalrymen and protected the Ji Dynasty, but he couldn't protect Madam. His heart has turned cold. Don't tell me you're blaming the emperor. Lu Yurong smiled faintly. A little, Chu Li replied. The emperor could protect all the Wangya, but he didn't care about the Wang Fei's life or death. Furthermore, it was the Wang Fei that was not by his side, guarding the border. She needed someone to protect her, but the emperor couldn't protect her. How could King Ping not feel resentful? If he didn't express his resentment, he would have buried it in his heart. Instead, it would have been stronger and left behind hidden dangers. If he expressed it, the emperor would feel relieved. Lu Yurong said, so His Majesty threw the secret guardians Hall's deputy commander into the imperial mausoleum, and threw you a centurion in as well? Chu Li glanced at her, without saying a word. Lu Yurong chuckled. Or is it because you blindly interfered and still have a conscience that you ended up like this? Why bother asking if you already know? Chu Li scoffed. Let's see if you're lying. Lu Yurong smiled and said, at least you didn't lie to me, but it's really tragic for you to end up like this. You've been crippled of your martial arts and sent to the imperial mausoleum. There's no hope for you to return to the fairies' capital. Your life is over. Chu Li nodded. Yes, my life is over, but I see that you are quite calm. Lu Yurong looked him up and down. She initially thought that Chu Li would be in a daze. Confidence did not come out of thin air. It was because of his strength. Chu Li was in high spirits because of his martial arts. If he lost his martial arts, he would naturally lose his confidence. Unexpectedly, Chu Li was still in high spirits and did not look down at all. She could not help but admire him for being able to remain calm and unmoved in the face of adversity. This was true courage. She had always admired Chu Li's great courage, which was far beyond what she could achieve. Chu Li said, even if I lose my martial arts, I can live a free and unfettered life with my intelligence. He. Lu Yurong giggled. Xiao Yaozi Zai, you wish. Chu Li shook his head and said nothing. Shao Qi faintly asked, Lu Yurong, what do you know? Oh, third Miss Xiao, are you worried? Lu Yurong looked at her with a smile. I won't say it. Shao Qi frowned. Will there be trouble at the imperial mausoleum? Lu Yurong smiled faintly. Chu Li asked, King Jing, are you relieved now? Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. King Ping might be taking a step back in order to advance. Chu Li secretly sighed. Lu Yurong was indeed smart. He said, no matter what, he took a step back. King Jing can take this opportunity to infiltrate the military. Miss Lu, you'll be very busy too. Do you still have the time to come and watch me? There's no hurry. Lu Yurong's fair and delicate lips curled up. She was excited when she saw King Jing's hope of ascending to the throne. Since her biggest opponent was in trouble, of course, she had to come and show off. Shao Qi said, there's still 10 years. 10 years may seem fast, but it can also be very slow. Who knows what will happen in the future? She said, Chuli has practiced martial arts for less than 2 years. It'll be faster if he cultivates again. Besides, it's not that difficult for me to ask for a life recovery pill from Green Deer Cliff. No matter how indifferent she was and how competitive she was, she could not bear to see Lu Yurong being so smug, especially when Chuli was down. It was like pouring salt on his wound, making him feel even more pain. Lu Yurong's expression changed slightly. She thought of Xiao Yueling and could not help but scoff. Crippling his martial arts is for the emperor to see. How can he recover so quickly? Is he messing with the emperor? Chuli smiled. Miss Lu, although I can't help King Jing succeed, it's still easy for me to ruin his plans. Lu Yurong squinted her eyes. Chu Li and her stared at each other. Their eyes were reflecting the fire. Chu Li suddenly looked to his left and raised his voice. Fa Yuan, since you're here, come out and meet me. Amitabha Buddha. A Buddhist chant was heard. It was peaceful and quiet. It slowly traveled into their ears. Fa Yuan's gray robe fluttered. He came to the bonfire and bowed with pressed palms. Brother Chu, ladies. Chuli smiled. Fa Yuan, are you here to laugh at me? Fa Yuan smiled. The world is unpredictable. I didn't think that Brother Chu would have such a day. The world is unpredictable. I didn't think that I would meet you, Fa Yuan, under such circumstances. Chuli smiled. Lu Yurong scoffed. Monk, why are you here? Fa Yuan smiled. If almsgiver Lu can come, why can't I? They're just some small fry. They can't even withstand a single blow. Chuli smiled. There's no need for you to come. If Brother Chu is hurt by these small fry, it'll be a great shame. Fa Yuan shook his head. Lu Yurong scoffed. Monk, you and Chu Li are known as the twin prides. Are you afraid that your name will be tarnished? Fa Yuan smiled, without saying a word. Xiao Qi asked, Master Fa Yuan, do you know the truth about the Imperial Mausoleum? The inner mausoleum, the outer mausoleum, and adjacent town. Fa Yuan nodded. Brother Chu's martial arts will be crippled. He'll enter the small town next to the Imperial Mausoleum and serve there. Lu Yurong scoffed. I'm here on King Jing's orders to inform the mayor to take care of Chu Li. I'll give you a job. Are you satisfied? Thank you, King Jing. Chu Li fist saluted. Lu Yurong rolled her eyes. Fa Yuan said, the people serving in the town are sent to guard the Imperial Mausoleum. Some of the residents are from the outer mausoleum, and some are family members from the inner mausoleum. The small town is very safe. You don't have to worry. Xiao Qi sighed in relief. Chuli said, let's hurry up tomorrow and reach adjacent town as soon as possible. He chatted with Fa Yuan and asked about the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture. He wanted to know if there was a way to restrain it. Fa Yuan shook his head. The reincarnation temple's inheritance was completely different from the Titanium Temple and the Tempest Temple. Moreover, the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture had always been mysterious. He really did not know how to restrain it. For the next 2 days, the journey was very quiet. It was as if the assassins did not dare to come after seeing that there were so many of them and tactfully left. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, they arrived at a small town that was about the same size as Qingyun Town. It was bustling with people. The 4 of them went straight to the town defense prefecture. The town defense prefecture was located in the center of the town. It looked shabby and dilapidated. It was not even close to being luxurious. Moreover, the security was lax. There were only 2 protectors guarding the gate. Other than that, there were no other protectors in the prefecture. Chang Gui was short and plump. He sat in an armchair in the main hall of the town defense prefecture. He was smiling and did not look dignified at all. Instead, he looked like a spring breeze. He was a grand master with a profound cultivation level. Chang Gui sized Chu Li up. Head Chief Chu Li, I've heard of your name here. Chu Li fist saluted. Chapter 994. The four of them looked at Chang Gui. Chang Gui was still smiling at Chu Li. Sweeping a street shouldn't be a difficult task, right? Chu Li gave a fist salute. Yes. Chang Gui stared at him as if he was trying to read his every expression. In the end, he shook his head in disappointment. All right then, you should take a rest since you've just arrived. Don't stay in bed because you're sick. You can start tomorrow. Come over tomorrow after breakfast, and someone will bring you along. Yes. Chu Li revealed a smile and slowly asked, I wonder which of the mayor's relatives you cherish the most. The question was abrupt and strange. Chang Gui frowned at him. Chu Li shook his head. Should I find my own place to stay? You can stay wherever you want as long as you don't delay the task. Chang Gui waved his hand impatiently. Chu Li gave him a fist salute. Goodbye. The four of them left the town defense prefecture with unpleasant expressions. It was obvious that the job of sweeping a street was a show of strength. He, a dignified rank 1 Imperial Guard, sweeping the streets was simply an insult to him. This city guard seemed to be smiling, but his eyes were filled with hostility. Lu Yurong suddenly burst into laughter. Sweeping a street, that's a good job. I want to visit tomorrow and learn from everyone in Fairy's capital. I'll help you make a name for yourself. Xiao Qi looked at her in dissatisfaction. Lu Yurong smiled. Chu Li, why don't you reject the job? If I do, there's a better job waiting for me. Chu Li said, transporting feces. That's even more vicious. Lu Yurong exclaimed. F.A. Yuan asked, Brother Chu, are you going to accept it just like that? Chu Li was deep in thought. He smiled. He's the local tyrant. Of course, I won't sweep the street. Then what should we do? F.A. Yuan said, he's in a high position. I can only obey him and not disobey him. The town defense prefecture was the highest official in the city and reported directly to the imperial court. Chu Li was now assigned to the imperial mausoleum. If he did not listen to the town defense prefecture and submitted a report, the emperor would be furious and give him a heavier punishment. Not only would he not be able to return, but he would also be in a worse situation. He was now crippled of his martial arts and was waiting for the emperor to let him return to Fairy's capital so that he could quickly recover his martial arts. All he was waiting for was a word from the emperor. Chu Li smiled. Everyone has a weakness. F.A. Yuan looked at him in confusion. Xiao Qi said, I'll buy a residence first and settle down. Chu Li shook his head. There's no rush. We'll stay in an inn first. They quickly found an inn in the city and asked for a small courtyard. F.A. Yuan and Lu Yurong had no intention of leaving. Chu Li ordered a banquet and sat in the gazebo in the courtyard. Lu Yurong ate a few mouthfuls of food and took 2 sips of wine. She smiled and said, Fine, I'll help you plead for him. Give him His Highness King Jing's letter. Chu Li shook his head. Forget it. Lu Yurong gave him a sidelong glance. Why? You don't want to owe His Highness King Jing a favor? Chu Li said, I'm just afraid that His Highness King Jing isn't as influential as you think. Lu Yurong smiled and shook her head. You think too highly of him. Chu Li shook his head and smiled without saying a word. Chang Gui sat in the hall and rubbed his bulging belly with satisfaction. The feeling of stepping on a god's favored one was too mesmerizing. It made him excited and satisfied. He stroked his beard and sighed again. He wanted to continue. Unfortunately, Chu Li was too tactful and did not give him a chance to act up. He thought that Chu Li would not be able to keep his cool when he heard about this lowly task. After all, he was young and full of vigor. He would be unconvinced and question him. Then, he would ask him if he wanted to do this task. Chu Li would definitely say no. Then, he would announce his other task, which was to help transport excrement. At this time, he would not be able to refuse. If he did, he would have to write a book to make this god's favored one fall into the dust and never be able to make a comeback. Thinking of this, he was inexplicably excited. He licked his lips as if he was facing a feast. Then he shook his head and sighed. It was a pity that Chu Li was tactful and knew when to yield. He agreed immediately. This guy was so slippery that he dodged a bullet. Suddenly, he felt something and raised his head. Lu Yurong, whose face was covered by a white veil and was dressed in white, was standing in the hall. His heart skipped a beat. This woman's cultivation level was very high. However, no matter how high her cultivation level was, she would not dare to do anything to him. His Royal Highness King Jing has a letter for Mayor Chang. She took out the letter from her sleeves and gently let go. The waterproof envelope floated as if it was carried by an invisible hand and arrived in front of Chang Gui. Chang Gui received it calmly. After tearing it open, he glanced at the white paper and gently placed it on the table beside him. Mayor Chang, what do you think? Lu Yurong asked. Chang Gui grinned and said, this Chu Li's reputation is quite extraordinary. He hasn't even arrived yet, but the letters from the Royal Highnesses have already arrived. To be honest, not only have I received a letter from His Royal Highness King Jing, but I've also received letters from Prince Bao, Prince Kong, and King Ping. They've asked me to take care of Chu Li. Lu Yurong frowned and suddenly understood. Whatever His Royal Highness King Jing thought of, it was impossible for the Royal Highness to not have thought of it. I can't afford to offend the Royal Highnesses. Chang Gui shook his head and sighed. But rules are rules. Without rules, nothing can be done. I'm under the orders of the Imperial Court and His Majesty to guard this city. I have to enforce the law and do things according to the rules. I can't be biased. Changing to a leisurely job isn't to the point of being biased, is it? Lu Yurong frowned and stared at him. Her bright eyes were clear and cold. She was secretly angry. She did not think that Chang Gui was a pure and honest official. He was just seizing the opportunity to show off his strong points in order to gain the emperor's favor. He was an opportunistic person who wanted to use Chu Li as a stepping stone to climb up. Chang Gui said in a low voice, Chu Li wants to change his job. Others want to change their job too. Everyone is dissatisfied with their job. How can I be convinced by this? Among those who were sent to the Imperial Mausoleum, some had a chance to make a comeback, especially those Imperial Court officials who did not know martial arts. After coming to adjacent town, they might be able to return to the Imperial Court. Others, on the other hand, had no chance to make a comeback. Chu Li was sent to the Imperial Mausoleum by the Emperor himself. He had deceived the Emperor and lost his reputation. Once he spoke, the Emperor would not go back on his word. How could he change it? Therefore, Chu Li had no chance to make a comeback. A person who could not make a comeback and was famous was the best stepping stone for Chang Gui. If Chang Gui taught him a lesson, he would be able to earn the reputation of an honest official and leave adjacent town. There was a chance that he could gain the emperor's favor and return to Fairy's capital. Although the Royal Highnesses would blame him for not giving them face, as long as he had the reputation of an honest official and did what he wanted, they would eventually be convinced. Moreover, it did not matter even if they held a grudge against him. As long as he could return to Fairy's capital and leave this remote place. Mayor Chang, you have a good plan. I'm just afraid that your plan won't work. Lu Yurong said coldly. Chu Li is not someone you can bully. Chapter 9, 95. 32-inch very well, then we shall wait and see. Lu Yurong turned to leave. I will personally report to the Royal Highnesses about Mayor Chang's straightforwardness. Thank you. Chang Gui cupped his fist and smiled. I can't wait for that. Lu Yurong sneered and turned to leave. Chang Gui stroked his beard and smiled. He was very satisfied with his response. King Jing was the next emperor, but once he became the emperor, he would have a different mindset. Not only would he not be angry at his rejection, but he would also value him. He could even reject King Jing, let alone others. How could he not trust such a loyal subject? Chang Gui's smile widened as he thought about it. As for Chu Li, he sneered. No matter how capable he was still a cripple after his martial arts were crippled. Now that he was in his own territory, he had no choice but to be obedient. This was a rare opportunity. The one he had been waiting for was finally here. He could not help but laugh. He happily dealt with the documents for a while before he got up and left the main hall. He went to the backyard garden and asked the maid lazily, "Where's young master?" He went out to play with Madam. He should be back by now, right? Yes. The maid nodded softly. Chang Gui frowned as he looked at the sky. The sunset had dyed the garden a rosy color. His grandson and daughter-in-law should be home by now. His son died a violent death while adventuring in the martial arts world. His grandson was the only heir of the Chang family, so the Chang family's bloodline did not end. This only child was his lifeblood. His daughter-in-law was quite obedient and tried her best to take care of his grandson. She would come back early every day when he went out to play. Just then, hurried footsteps were heard. A beautiful young woman rushed in. She was dressed in a brocade gown, and her footsteps were strong. It was obvious that she was skilled in martial arts. Her face was pale, and she looked anxious. Her eyes were misty and looked like they were about to drip. "Xiao Yun, what happened?" Chang Gui frowned and stood up. "Father," Xiao Yun shouted. "An heir was kidnapped." "Kidnapped?" Chang Gui's expression changed. "How many people? How did it get snatched?" "Chang heir, Chang San, and an heir were on our way back when we were ambushed and knocked unconscious in an alley. When we woke up, an heir was already gone." Xiao Yun gritted her teeth and said hatefully, "We didn't even see who did it. Their martial arts were too strong." "A grandmaster? It must be the grandmaster." Xiao Yun quickly said, "Father, quickly send someone to look for him. I'm worried that if we delay for too long and Chang Gui was so angry that his whole body was trembling, and was his lifeblood. Who would be so bold as to provoke him? How lawless! Even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground, he would find these thieves and take back his grandson." "Guards!" Chang Gui yelled. "Master!" An old servant stepped forward and cupped his fists. The old servant was more than 10 years older than Chang Gui. Although his eyebrows and beard were all white, he was full of vigor. His eyes were like cold lightning, and his killing intent was dense. "Changda, pass down my order. Close the city gates and search every house." Chang Gui grunted. "Yes." The old servant Changda cupped his fists and replied, "But master, I'm afraid they're already outside the city." Xiao Yun quickly said, "They might have run out of the city." "Search the city first." Chang Gui scoffed with a gloomy face. "Yes." Changda responded and glided out. Xiao Yun sat by the stone table and started sobbing. Chang Gui's face was gloomy. He did not move as he thought about who would kidnap his grandson. After a while, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration and thought of Chu Li. Back then, Chu Li had asked who was the person he cared about the most among his relatives. Then, he changed the topic and only mentioned that one sentence. Thinking about it now, there was a deep meaning behind it. He already harbored evil intentions back then and wanted to do this. When he thought about this, he said, "Chang-er." "Yes, master." A middle-aged man glided over and gave a fist salute. "Get Chu-Li here." "Yes." Chu-Li soon appeared in the main hall of the town defense prefecture. He wore a green robe and looked upright and heroic. After he entered, Chang Gui sat in the armchair in the middle and stared at him like a hawk. He did not say a word. The main hall was shrouded in silence. The atmosphere was getting more and more oppressive. Seeing that he did not speak, Chu-Li casually sat in the armchair and broke the silence. "Is there anything I can help you with, Sir Mayor? You did it, right, Chu-Li?" Chang Gui retracted his sharp gaze and opened his fan with a swoosh. He asked with a smile. It was already late autumn. It was not a suitable season for fanning. Chu-Li said, "What do you mean, Sir Mayor? I really don't understand." "You kidnapped my grandson, didn't you?" Chang Gui laughed. "You're indeed the famous Chu-Li. You're so daring to do such a thing as soon as you enter the city. You're not brave enough to cross the river." He smiled as if he was joking. He did not show any anxiety and did not seem to care about his grandson. Chu-Li said, "Sir Mayor, I don't understand what you're saying. Sir Mayor's grandson was kidnapped? No wonder the city is in a mess." "Chu-Li, you don't have to act dumb." Chang Gui shook his head. "You just want to change a job." "Sure, I'll change it for you." "What job does Sir Mayor want me to change?" "How about an idle job in the town defense prefecture?" Chang Gui said. "You don't have to come over." "Thank you, Sir Mayor." Chu-Li fist saluted. Chang Gui smiled and said, "Can you hand over my grandson now?" "I really didn't kidnap Sir Mayor's grandson." Chu-Li shook his head. "How can I do such an illegal thing?" Chang Gui frowned. He still had a smile on his face, but his gaze was cold. Chu-Li sighed. "Sir Mayor might have made a mistake. My grandson is still in the residence, but he thought he was kidnapped." Chang Gui frowned. He raised his voice. "Guards." Chang-Er glided in. "Go and look for young master's room." Chang Gui ordered. "Yes." Chang-Er glided out. Soon, Chang-Er rushed in like a gust of wind. "Master, young master is sleeping on the bed. He's awake. There's no problem." "Good." Chang Gui waved his hand and let out a sigh of relief. Chu-Li smiled. "Seems like Sir Mayor has made a mistake. I wonder if this job is still mine?" Chang Gui's smile faded. His round face was covered with a layer of frost as he stared coldly at Chu-Li. He wanted to punch Chu-Li to death. Touching his grandson was tantamount to touching his reverse scale. How could he live if something happened to his grandson? He would not even have someone to send him off. How could he face his ancestors after he died? Chu-Li deserved to die. He must not be forgiven. Chu-Li grinned at him. Chang Gui said coldly, "You can go back and wait." Chu-Li laughed. "Sir Mayor, you've changed too quickly." Chang Gui said coldly, "I'll kill you with one slap. At most, I'll retire and return to my hometown." Chu-Li shook his head and fist saluted. "If that's the case, I'll take my leave." Scram! Chang Gui slammed the armrest of his chair. "You're not allowed to take another step into the town defense prefecture." Chu-Li shook his head calmly and turned to leave. Bang! Chang Gui slammed his palm on the table, and it shattered into a pile. He glared at Chu-Li's back and gritted his teeth. He had a strong urge to kill Chu-Li and get rid of the scourge. A trace of rationality stopped him. Chu-Li was a person from the High Duke's public house. It would be fine if he used his authority to bully him, and no one would say anything. Instead, they would praise him for his courage. However, if he killed Chu-Li, there would be endless trouble. The High Duke's public house would not let him go. Changda, he shouted. All the protectors in the residence are to protect an heir. An heir is not allowed to go out for the next few days. Yes. Old servant Chang responded. Chang Gui gritted his teeth, and his eyes were spitting fire. How dare he play this game with him? He wanted to see who would win. This was his territory. He took a deep breath and said, "Send the secret guards to deal with Chu Li, break his limbs." Chapter 996. P.S. Update complete. Chu Li returned to the small courtyard of the inn as dusk arrived, and the lanterns were lit. Xiao Qi, Lu Yurong, and Fa Yuan were waiting. When they saw him return safely, they smiled at him. "Did you change your job?" Lu Yurong asked. Chu Li shook his head. "It's not that easy. This mayor won't give up until he hits a brick wall. Looks like I'll have to do it again." Lu Yurong smiled. "Remember, I owe him another favor." Chu Li said, "Forget it. I don't dare to use you." "Oh." Lu Yurong glanced at him. "Are you going to let Third Lady do it alone? Third Lady Xiao and I work together quite well. Isn't that right, Third Lady Xiao?" Xiao Qi ignored her provocation and asked calmly, "Chu Li, what do you want to do?" Chu Li smiled. "You don't have to worry about this. I'll take care of it." Lu Yurong looked at him curiously. He must be on high alert now. It's impossible to kidnap that little guy without him knowing. The protectors in the town defense prefecture are weak. I suggest we just barge in and teach him a lesson. Otherwise, he'll be too arrogant and use you as a ladder. Xiao Qi nodded. She also thought that this was a good idea, using force to break through tricks. No matter how many tricks he had, it would be futile if he was not strong enough. As long as Chang Gui was aware of this, he would not provoke Chu Li and humiliate him. She hated Chang Gui and saw through his evil intentions. She wanted to teach him a lesson and let him know that some people could not be humiliated or used. Fa Yuan said, "I'll do it." Even if Chu Li's martial arts was crippled, he was still a master who was on par or even better than him. He could not bear to see Chu Li being humiliated. Chu Li smiled. "This time, you don't have to do anything. Using force won't help much. What do you want?" Lu Yurong scoffed. "So secretive. Let me keep you in suspense." Chu Li smiled. "Just wait for the news tomorrow." Lu Yurong rolled her eyes. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together and shook his head. The morning sun was still shining, but the world was still dark. There was only a ray of light in the sky. Chang Gui's grandson, Chang En, was a cute little boy who was sleeping soundly on the bed. His mother, Xiaoyun, held him in her arms. She was afraid of losing him, so she hugged him tightly, afraid that the child would be gone if she let go. For grandmasters stood guard outside the door, one on the roof, and the other three at the corner of the wall, ready to defend against any sneak attacks. They were motionless and in a state of half awake and half asleep. Their senses were the sharpest. With the sound of footsteps, Chang Gui slowly walked into the courtyard. "Master!" The four grandmasters closed fist saluted. They were Changda and the other three. Chang Gui waved his hand. "Any movement?" "No." The four of them shook their heads. Changda said, "We've been keeping watch all night, but there's been no movement." "It looks like they've retreated." "Yes." Chang Gui nodded. His original prediction was that Chu Li would send someone to attack them last night, but now it seemed that he was wrong. He did not know what Chu Li was up to. Xiaoyun woke up when she heard the voice. She called out, "Father!" "Xiaoyun, didn't Er sleep well? I didn't wake up for the whole night." "Oh, that's good." "Ah!" Xiaoyun suddenly screamed. Chang Gui could not care less about the boundaries between men and women. He rushed into the house and saw Xiao Yun staring at a pair of silver bracelets on the table. Xiao Yun, what's wrong? Chang Gui asked. The little boy, Chang'an, rubbed his eyes and sat up. He pouted and wanted to cry. Mother, Xiao Yun's face was pale as she stared at the silver bracelets. Xiao Yun! Chang Gui shouted. Xiao Yun quickly said, Father, someone came last night. Chang Gui looked at her, in confusion. Could it be this silver bracelet? When I was knocked out yesterday, the silver bracelet disappeared. Xiao Yun pursed her red lips and said with a trembling voice, Before I went to sleep last night, I was regretting that this silver bracelet was given to me by an Er's father. It's passed down from his mother-in-law. It's such a pity to lose it, but now it's here. Chang Gui's face darkened. You're saying that someone came last night? Yes. Xiao Yun nodded. Chang Gui walked to the table and picked up the silver bracelet. Below the bracelet was a flower petal with dew on it. His face darkened. Chu Li. Father, was it Chu Li? Xiao Yun asked. Chang Gui waved his hand. Don't worry about it. Don't bring it out today. Yes. Xiao Yun nodded. Even if he wanted her to bring an heir out to play, she would not go. It was too dangerous outside. Who knew if an heir would be sent back safely the next time they made a move? Chang Gui went to the bed and patted Chang'an's head. Grandfather, an heir wants to ride a horse. Chang'an extended his hands. Chang Gui chuckled. After dinner, I'll bring an heir to ride a horse, okay? Okay. Chang'an nodded obediently. Chang Gui patted his head happily and left the house. He sat in the main hall with a gloomy face. He frowned as he stroked his beard. Chang'an asked softly, Master, are we going to deal with Chu Li? Forget it. Chang Gui scoffed. This young man is indeed famous. He does have some strange abilities. Go and inform him that he's been transferred to the town defense prefecture. There's no need for him to come. Yes, Chang'an replied, and asked softly, Are we going to let this young man go? We'll deal with him after his companions leave. Chang Gui sneered. I don't believe I can't deal with someone who doesn't know any martial arts. Yes, Chang'an laughed. Master is wise. A man can advance and retreat at the same time. Don't flatter me. Go and inform him. Chang Gui scoffed. Chang'an fist saluted and left. Chu Li fist saluted as he watched Chang to leave the courtyard. Lu Yurong looked at him in shock. However, Shao Qi knew that he had used a divine power. His god's limbs could reach the boy's house in an instant. He put down the silver bracelet and disappeared without a sound. It was shocking enough. Since he could put down the silver bracelet without a sound, it would be easy for him to put down other things. He could even kill someone. This would make Chang Gui understand that his grandson's life was in Chu Li's hands. Lu Yurong smiled. It's a pity that we didn't get to see the show. Fei Yuan pressed his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. He finally managed to save his face. Fei Yuan felt uncomfortable when he thought of Chu Li sweeping the streets. Chu Li said, He's just staying put for now. Once you leave, he'll play tricks again. Next time, we must teach him a lesson so that he won't dare to do anything bad again. Then we'll leave today. Let him make his move. Lu Yurong smiled. She turned to look at Shao Qi. What about Third Lady Shao? Shao Qi said, I'll leave in a few days. Oh, you're together already? Lu Yurong smiled faintly. Third Lady Shao, aren't you too unreserved? No matter what, you're still the third lady of the public house. You're as pure as ice and as clean as jade. Chu Li snapped, Don't talk so much. Lu Yurong said, Chu Li, you've gained a blessing in disguise. You used Third Lady Zhao's kindness and sympathy to keep her. Chu Li scoffed. Do you want to stay too? Do you dare to keep me? Lu Yurong chuckled and raised her eyebrows flirtatiously. Xiao Qi frowned at her. Chu Li hurriedly waved his hand. Have a safe trip. I won't send you off. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Then we'll bid farewell. We'll visit you again in a few days. Go, go. Chu Li waved his hand. Chapter 9, 97. After the two left, only Chu Li and Xiao Qi were left in the courtyard. Xiao Qi glanced at him. Chu Li smiled. Lady Xiao, you should leave too. I can handle it alone. What if someone attacks you? How are you going to deal with it? You can't just run away. Xiao Qi said. Chu Li nodded. That's true. Thank you, Lady Xiao. I'll buy 2 residences tomorrow. Xiao Qi said, 1 for each of us. Chu Li looked at her, helplessly. Xiao Qi said, we still have to keep our distance. We can't stay in the same house. Sigh. Chu Li shook his head. Lady Xiao, is your regal sword scripture strong enough? It seemed like Xiao Qi had seen through his intentions. The pavilion closest to the water enjoyed the moonlight first. As time passed, the two of them lived alone in this small town. As time passed, even the strictest of their hearts would not be able to keep up. Yes, Xiao Qi said, I'll be in isolated cultivation soon. Chu Li said, that's good too. One house would be used as a retreat place, and the other house would be used for daily use. He thought to himself. Xiao Qi went with him to the broker house in the town and found 2 connected residences. They were 2 old residences by the river in the east of the town. There was moss on the stone steps, and grass grew between the blue stones in the courtyard. Chu Li and Xiao Qi were satisfied. As soon as they stepped out of the door, they saw a clear river. They could wash clothes by the river and sail on the river. The weeping willows by the river were graceful and swaying with the wind like mist. Behind the residences was a shop which they bought along with the shop. The shop used to sell grain, but it was now closed. The shop was located on the side of the central street and was facing the bustling street. Although this small city was not as prosperous as the Immortals' capital, it was not inferior to Qingyun City. In fact, it was even better than Qingyun City. After all, most of the people who were sent here were nobles. Their pockets were full of money, and they spent lavishly. Therefore, they were able to attract skilled craftsmen from all over the world to come here. There were many people with special talents in this small city. Chu Li did not plan to open a shop. He was not short of money and did not want to be distracted by these mundane things. Money would always bring trouble. There was no one who could earn money without putting in effort. There would always be various things to deal with. He planned to study the white tiger power carefully. In the evening, as the sun was setting, the two of them left their newly bought residence to have dinner. As the third lady of the High Duke's public house, how could Xiao Qi cook? The two of them went to a small town's restaurant for dinner. The two of them sat at a table by the window, chatting as they ate. Will he just let it go? Xiao Qi took a sip of the wine. She had already taken off her white veil, revealing her pure and peerlessly beautiful appearance, which attracted the prying gazes of the surrounding people. Xiao Qi did not care at all. She just stared at Chu Li with a frown. Forcing him to admit defeat will eventually lead to hidden dangers. I'm just afraid that he will plot against us at the crucial moment. It's not the right time yet. Chu Li smiled. Let's slow down and deal with him slowly. If we don't crush him to death, he'll jump out sooner or later. It's good that you understand. Xiao Qi was finally relieved. She was afraid that Chu Li would not care about Chang Gui at all. Would it not mean that these despicable people would often spoil things, especially when Chu Li was at such a crucial moment? If Chang Gui were to risk offending him and participate in the book, the consequences would be unpredictable. Chu Li was suddenly stunned. He called out, Commander Su, the middle-aged man who was slowly walking up the stairs, looked up and smiled when he saw Chu Li. It was Su Huanda. He was dressed in a grayish-brown robe and looked like he was in dire straits. Chu Li stood up and fist saluted. Su Huanda approached him and sighed. I didn't expect us to be brothers in hardship. You're here too. I'm here to accompany Commander Su. Chu Li smiled. Xiao Qi only nodded without saying much. Su Huanda asked, Why were you sent here? Chu Li looked around and smiled. I told King Ping who the mastermind was. Su Huanda's expression changed. He pondered for a moment and shook his head. Why did you do that? You're asking for trouble. There's nothing I can do. I can't change my temper. Chu Li said, Commander Su can be reinstated, right? It'll be difficult. Su Huanda shook his head. The position has already been taken. He's favored by the emperor, so the emperor will trust him more and won't immediately remove his position as deputy commander. As for me, the emperor doesn't mind if I stay a few more years. Sigh. Chu Li shook his head. Then how did you get injured, Commander Su? He could tell at a glance that Su Huanda was heavily injured, but he pretended to be fine on the surface. There was a trace of weak inner strength circulating in his internal organs. It was constantly eroding his internal organs, and his body was constantly deteriorating. At this rate, he would probably be bedridden in less than 2 days. Su Huanda smiled bitterly. When he was in the secret guardians' hall, he always had a sullen expression on his face as if he was wearing an iron mask. There was no other expression on his face, and he did not bat an eyelid about anything. It was as if he was numb and indifferent. However, at this moment, he had a sorrowful look on his face. The secret guardians' hall has offended too many people. How dare they? Chu Li's expression darkened. Su Huanda said, Forget it. They're either from the outer mausoleum or the inner mausoleum. They're unscrupulous. You can't do anything to them. Besides, your martial arts has been crippled. Chu Li nodded slowly. Oh, right, you must be careful. You're from the secret guardians' hall too, Su Huanda said. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to move around in the town. It's okay. I'm not going on an errand. Chu Li smiled. The Royal Highnesses pleaded for me, and I got an errand. I don't have to go out. I can just stay at home and cultivate. I'm afraid that disaster will fall from the sky while you're at home. Su Huanda shook his head and smiled. I'm not that lucky. I don't dare to cripple my martial arts like you. He knew that he could not enter the imperial mausoleum if his martial arts were crippled. If he could live outside the town, it would be easier for the emperor to summon him back. However, his identity determined that he could not take this path. If he did not have martial arts, the emperor would not use him, and it would be impossible for him to summon him back to Fairy's capital. Moreover, he understood his situation. He knew that he would not have a good time in the imperial mausoleum. He would be ostracized and suppressed without anyone to rely on. Without his martial arts, he would be like a fish on a chopping board. It would be miserable. Chu Li nodded and smiled. If I don't enter the outer mausoleum, there won't be so many grudges, right? The people from the outer mausoleum can come out. Su Huanda shook his head. They'll definitely cause you trouble. I'm afraid you won't be able to hide. I still have Lady Xiao to protect me. Chu Li smiled. Su Huanda shook his head. According to the rules of adjacent town, non-family members can only stay here for a maximum of 7 days. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Once Lady Xiao leaves after 7 days, who will protect you? Su Huanda asked. Only family members? Chu Li frowned. Xiao Qi frowned too. Su Huanda said, "If Lady Xiao is your wife, she can stay. However, she's not, so she can only leave after 7 days. No one can defy this rule." "What other relationships can I stay here with?" Xiao Qi asked. Su Huanda said, "Siblings can only be biological relatives. Those who are not related by blood can only be husband and wife." Chu Li could not help but laugh. "Looks like I'll have to live alone," Su Huanda said. "Now that your martial arts have been crippled, don't think that they'll let you go according to the rules of the martial arts world. Instead, they'll make things worse." Chapter 998. Chu Li smiled. "Don't worry about it. I'll take it one day at a time. Maybe the Emperor will summon me back in 7 days. "Impossible," Su Huanda said. "I know the Emperor's temper. Even if he's wrong, he'll be wrong to the end. He won't give up halfway and won't allow his dignity to be damaged. He'll regret it even if he's wrong." "If that's the case, will he stay here forever?" Xiao Qi asked with a frown. Su Huanda said, "Even if someone pleads for him, based on the Emperor's temper, he won't change his mind for at least a year or so." "Fortunately, it's only a year or so." Chu Li smiled. "If he doesn't change his mind, I'll really have to stay here." His desire to become an enlightened master was getting more and more urgent. He was suppressed everywhere and could not move freely. He felt that he was ashamed of his rebirth. Su Huanda said, "Of course." "Chu Li, I noticed that your thoughts are dangerous. You're being disrespectful to the Emperor. If I'm disrespectful, it'll be difficult for me to become an enlightened master." Chu Li shook his head. "Chu Li, although you're a genius and even better than Fa Yuan from the Tempest Temple, it'll be extremely difficult for you to become an enlightened master. It's best to give up on this idea, or you'll be asking for trouble." Su Huanda shook his head and stood up. "Let's go. We'll find a quiet place." Chu Li nodded. "Let's go to my new residence." "My place?" Su Huanda shook his head. Chu Li agreed and followed Su Huanda down the restaurant. After a few turns, they entered a narrow alley and arrived at an ordinary house. The house here was very different from the one Chu Li bought. It was narrow and low. "Commander Su?" Chu Li looked around. Su Huanda shook his head. "I can pay, but it's not necessary. Moreover, it's not a good idea. It shouldn't be difficult to buy a better residence, right? A good residence is too eye-catching. Without enough power, you won't be able to protect it." Su Huanda shook his head. "Even if you buy it, it'll be occupied. Is the security in the city so bad?" Chu Li frowned. Su Huanda said, "It's fine on the surface, but don't forget that there are martial arts figures here. Although the mayor is a master, he can't control every corner of the city. Since ancient time, it's always been black and white. Then, who has the final say underground?" Chu Li asked. Su Huanda pushed open the door and entered. There was only a flower bed in the small courtyard inside. Beside the flower bed was a wooden table. It had been weathered by the wind and rain, mottled and worn out. The three of them sat at the wooden table. Su Huanda brewed some tea and sighed. The underground master was originally a Chiliarch. His surname was Su, and his given name was Guangyang. He was once a general of the southern border, and he often fought against the Zheng dynasty. Later on, he was punished and sent here. Chu Li frowned and pondered. Su Huanda continued, "This Su Guangyang was also sent here after his martial arts were crippled, just like you. However, his martial arts were crippled by the imperial court and then thrown here. I didn't expect him to recover his martial arts so quickly and unite his 4 subordinates to become the boss in the city. No one dares to offend him. Does His Majesty know?" "I know." "Interesting." Chu Li shook his head. He was brought down by the secret guardian's hall back then. Su Huanda shook his head. He hates the secret guardian's hall to the core. Co Chi frowned even more. Then, Commander, Su can't defeat him? Chu Li asked. Su Huanda shook his head. His cultivation level is extremely high. I'm no match for him. Moreover, his 4 subordinates are top-notch masters. Chu Li said, looks like the days from now on won't be peaceful. The underworld exists everywhere. This place is much more dangerous than the fairies' capital. Su Huanda shook his head and smiled bitterly. Back then, I only did things on impulse. I was confident that I had the Emperor's protection, so I offended people. I didn't expect this day to come. He sighed again. Fate was unpredictable. He never thought that he would have such a day. He could not hide his disappointment. Initially, he thought that he would be valued by the Emperor if he stayed true to his heart. He did not expect the Emperor to abandon him in a flash. He was in such a difficult situation. No matter how strong his martial arts was, he could only fight alone. He was far from Su Guangyang's group. Chu Li smiled. Commander Su, you don't have to worry after today. With Lady Co around, dealing with those people will be a piece of cake. Co Chi glared at him. Su Huanda smiled bitterly. No matter how powerful Lady Co is, she can only stay for 7 days. Besides, she might not be able to defeat Su Guangyang. I'll just try. Chu Li said, Lady Co, what do you think? Co Chi nodded. Chu Li and Su Huanda then talked about the situation in the town and Su Huanda's assignment. Su Huanda's assignment was to patrol the outer mausoleum, so he was quite free. However, the people from the outer mausoleum could not stay in the mausoleum. They had to enter the Imperial Mausoleum to take turns on duty. When the time was up, they had to come out and return to live in the town. Only the people from the inner mausoleum could live in the mausoleum. The protectors from the inner mausoleum can also enter the town, Su Huanda said. Those people are all top-notch masters. It's best if you don't offend them. They've been staying here all their lives and are fearless. Many of them have mental problems and are like lunatics. Chu Li slowly nodded. Co Chi sat aside and listened without saying anything. When the sky turned dark, Chu Li and Co Chi left the Su residence. Before they left, Chu Li gave Su Huanda a spirit pill to help him recover from his injuries. The two strolled along the river. The weeping willow swayed gently with the night breeze. Strings of lanterns were hung on both sides of the river, illuminating the houses on both sides. The river swayed gently and sparkled. On the river, a small boat floated along with the waves like a leaf on the river. Some scholars sat in the boat and recited poems while the sound of bamboo fluttered from the boat. The deputy commander of the secret guardian's hall has fallen to such a state. Co Chi gently shook her head. Chu Li said, it's because he was abandoned by the emperor. Co Chi's bright eyes looked at him. Chu Li smiled. Lady Co, don't worry. I won't end up like this. If I leave, you won't be able to use your martial arts. If you're surrounded, how will you escape? Divine power is a big secret. It can't be leaked. It's nothing to get beaten up, Chu Li said. Co Chi gently shook her head and bit her lower lip. Small boats floated along the river. A beautiful song could be heard, melodious and pleasing to the ear. The two walked side by the river. They could hear the sound of their footsteps. Under the lanterns, Co Chi's face was faintly discernible. The two unknowingly walked back to the residence and suddenly stopped. The main door was shattered on the ground as if it was slashed by a knife. The two walked in and saw that the parterre in the front yard was in a mess. Broken flowers and leaves were scattered everywhere. It was completely destroyed. The stone table next to the parterre was shattered and turned into a pile of stones. The stone stool was overturned, and there were knife marks everywhere. It could no longer be used. Chu Li took a deep breath and scoffed. Looks like we don't have to go to them. They came to us first. Xiao Qi's bright eyes flashed coldly. She calmly said, "Their skills are indeed extraordinary." Through these knife and palm marks, she speculated that these people's cultivation level was indeed grandmasters. Moreover, their cultivation level was high. The two went back into the house. All the furniture was broken. Not a single one was intact. The bed was split into several pieces, and the bedding was torn. Silk and cotton were like snow. They were scattered all over the ground. "Ruthless," Chu Li said coldly. Xiao Qi said, "He deliberately provoked us, right?" Chapter 9, 99. P.S. Update complete. I'm really sorry. I'm not in the best condition. I need to adjust. The two of them went to the residence next door. It was also completely destroyed. Not a single part of it was intact. The entire residence was uninhabitable. Chu Li and Xiao Qi had no choice but to find an inn to stay for the night. The next morning, they returned to the residence. As soon as they entered the door, they saw 3 middle-aged men sitting on the steps of the main hall. They were waiting impatiently with flowers in their hands. In front of each of them was a pile of broken petals. The man sitting in the middle had thick eyebrows and big eyes. When his eyes opened and closed, they emitted a cold glint that was fierce and terrifying. Just by looking at the dense, baleful aura around him, one could tell that he had been on the battlefield and had killed many people. The middle-aged men on both sides had mediocre appearances that were easily forgotten. They were tall and sturdy, and they were both grandmasters. They had already stood up and were staring at Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi was dressed in a white tunic with a white veil covering her face. However, her temperament was like that of a fairy. Her cold eyes looked at them calmly, as if she was an otherworldly fairy. They could not help but stare at her. "Who are you?" Chu Li asked. "You're Chu Li?" The middle-aged man said, "I'm Jin Wu." Chu Li nodded. "I'm Chu Li. What can I do for you?" "Chu Li, the head chief of King An's imperial residence?" Jin Wu asked. Chu Li nodded. Jin Wu said coldly, "The centurion of the secret guardians hall?" Chu Li pointed at his surroundings. "Did you guys do this?" Jin Wu answered, "Yes." Chu Li turned to look at Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi moved the long sword at her waist, and a sword light flashed. It was so fast that the sword could not be seen. Jin Wu threw a punch, but the tip of the sword had already pierced through his dantian. His inner energy poured out of his dantian like a flood, and the power in his fist disappeared. The 3 of them held their stomachs and stared at Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi had been accumulating her energy for this moment. She wanted to vent her frustrations from last night. She gently shook the long sword and returned it to its sheath. The white veil covered her face, so her face could not be seen. Her eyes were still cold, and she stood beside Chu Li like a white jade statue. Chu Li nodded. "Now we can talk nicely. Tell me, why did you destroy our residence?" Jin Wu glared at Chu Li viciously. He bit his lip so hard that it bled. "Fine, fine," Chu Li said faintly. "It seems like you don't want to talk about it. Then don't. Get lost, or else I'll break your limbs and throw you out." "You." Jin Wu glared at him. "This is adjacent town, not Fairy's capital." "So what if it's adjacent town? It's not your place to be tyrannical," Chu Li said coldly. "If you have the guts, ask Huang Feiyun to come." The underground master of adjacent city was Huang Feiyun. This Jin Wu was one of the 4 great Vajras. "Fine, fine." Jin Wu gritted his teeth. I want to see what will happen to you. Chu Li waved his hand. Get lost. Jin Wu and the other two middle-aged men staggered out. Chu Li scoffed, turned his head, and smiled. My lady, you did a great job. Xiao Qi replied. I might not be able to defeat Huang Feiyun. Chu Li laughed. My lady, if you can't defeat Huang Feiyun, then you'll have wasted your time cultivating the regal sword scripture. Xiao Qi shook her head. You can't underestimate the heroes of the world. He must have his own uniqueness to be able to dominate adjacent town. Then let's go and take a look. Chu Li muttered. Xiao Qi nodded. She placed her hand on Chu Li's shoulder and glided along with him. The two of them did not travel fast, so they followed Jin Wu and the other two from afar. Without their martial arts, they had lost their keen senses. In their daze, they did not notice Chu Li and Xiao Qi. Chu Li and Xiao Qi chatted as they stared at them. How far do you want to go? Xiao Qi asked. To replace them. Chu Li replied. It'll be very difficult. Xiao Qi said softly. Your identity is inherently disadvantageous. The secret Guardians Hall is unpopular, and everyone has the right to kill you. Besides, you're from the High Duke's public house, so the people might not be convinced. If they're not convinced, I'll beat them into submission. Chu Li scoffed. Otherwise, I won't be able to live peacefully and cultivate. That's true. Xiao Qi nodded. The tree longed for peace, but the wind would not stop. Since they had just arrived, if they could not gain a foothold, there would be endless troubles. Chu Li's identity attracted too much hatred, so if he wanted to live peacefully, he had to subdue the people around him. Jin Wu and the other two stumbled to a restaurant and went up to the third floor before they came to a young man. The young man wore a sapphire blue robe and was sitting at a table by the window in the restaurant where Chu Li and Xiao Qi had their meal last night. He held a glass of wine and sipped it as he pondered with a serious expression. He was the only one on the spacious floor. It was empty, but the first and second floors were bustling. Boss Huang, Jin Wu, and the two middle-aged men went forward and fist saluted with a gloomy expression. Help us. Huang Feiyun turned to look at the three of them and asked, What's wrong now? Our martial arts have been crippled by Chu Li. Jin Wu gritted his teeth. We can only ask Boss Huang to help us. Third Lady Xiao. Huang Feiyun asked. Chu Li's martial arts had been crippled, so he could not fight, so Xiao Qi was the only one who could. Yes, Jin Wu scoffed. Third Lady Zhao's martial arts are more powerful than the rumors say. She defeated us in one move. That's Third Lady Xiao. Huang Feiyun nodded and smiled. I've admired such a powerful beauty for a long time. Now that she's finally here in adjacent town, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Boss Huang. Jin Wu yelled in dissatisfaction. Then he remembered that he was no longer the valiant general he used to be. He had lost his martial arts and was now a cripple. Jin Wu, what do you think would happen if she becomes my wife? Huang Feiyun smiled. I've been fighting on the battlefield for the past 30 years. Now that I've come to adjacent town, I'm not interested in those ordinary women. Now, I've finally met such a wonderful person. Boss Huang, although you've been a chilly arch, Third Lady Zhao's standards must be very high. I'm afraid she won't like you. Jin Wu quickly said, It's okay if she doesn't like me. Huang Feiyun shook his head. Let's get married first. What's done can't be undone. She's the third lady of the High Duke's public house. Jin Wu said, If we offend the High Duke's public house, we won't even know how we'll die. We're already a family. Why would she go against me? Huang Feiyun chuckled. As long as we have the High Duke's public house, it'll be easy for us to leave this damned place. If it's that easy, Chu Li wouldn't have come here. Jin Wu quickly said. Huang Feiyun shook his head. Chu Li's different. He's offended the emperor. No one can save him, not even the High Duke's public house. As long as I kill him, Third Lady Xiao will belong to me. Ha ha! He laughed and clenched his fists. That's why Chu Li must die. But he's known by the emperor. Who knows if the emperor will put him in an important position? Jinwu hesitated. He was filled with hatred. Of course, he wanted Chu Li and Shao Qi dead. Chu Li's death would not be enough to vent his hatred. Shao Qi should die with him. Young fellow, Huang Feiyun pointed at him. You're so narrow-minded. Don't worry, I'll find a way to get you some spirit pills to help you recover your martial arts. Really? Jinwu was overjoyed. Huang Feiyun said, although it won't be easy, it's not impossible. If I can become the son-in-law of the High Duke's public house, I'll be more confident. Then hurry up and kill Chu Li, Jinwu said. Chapter 1000. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly laughed out loud. I'm sure Third Lady Xiao has arrived. Jinwu was stunned. His face darkened as he quickly turned to look, but there was no one around. Big Boss Huang? He turned around and smiled. Don't scare me. You idiot. How dare you swagger back after crippling your martial arts? With Third Lady Xiao's intelligence, how can she not know that she can find me if she follows you? She doesn't have the guts, does she? Huang Feiyun shook his head. Third Lady Xiao is a heroine, so she has the guts. Isn't that right, Third Lady Xiao? The surroundings were empty, no one could be seen. Huang Feiyun chuckled. Third Lady Xiao, since you're here, why don't you show yourself and let me have a look? Still, no one answered. Huang Feiyun laughed out loud. It's said that knowing someone by reputation is not as good as seeing them in person. I've always admired your beauty, so let me fulfill my wish today. I'll spare Chu Li's life. Still, no one answered. Jinwu said, Big Boss Huang, Third Lady Xiao might dare to come and have a look if she's alone, but she still has a cripple to take care of. What do you know? Huang Feiyun glared at him. Jinwu shrunk his neck. Big Boss Huang's gaze was not right. Huang Feiyun smiled. Since Third Lady Xiao is reluctant to meet me, I'll have to take the initiative. Adjacent town is so small, so it'll be easy to meet her. Isn't that right, Third Lady Xiao? Chu Li's laughter suddenly rang out. There's really someone so daring. No wonder he was sent here. In a flash, Chu Li and Shao Qi appeared on the third floor and stood in front of the four people. Huang Feiyun's expression remained unchanged as he smiled. However, he was secretly shocked because he did not sense them approaching. Their sudden appearance was worthy of their reputation for their excellent light body technique. This was Chu Li's God's limbs, but it looked like Shao Qi's light body technique. Huang Feiyun stared at Shao Qi greedily without blinking. Shao Qi's face was covered with a white veil, revealing only her eyes. They were clear and cold like autumn water, so intoxicating that he could not help but want to hold her in his arms and possess her eyes forever. Xiao Qi's bright eyes were calm as she looked on indifferently. She had seen this kind of greedy and intense gaze many times. Compared to the others, Huang Feiyun was more direct, bolder, and more intense, but he could not disturb her. Chu Li could shake her state of mind, but the others could not. It was like a gentle breeze that brushed past her face. Chu Li said, Huang Feiyun, you really aren't suited to be a centurion. An incompetent general will exhaust an entire army. You'll only let your soldiers die in vain. Shut up, you trash. Huang Feiyun turned his head abruptly and glared at Chu Li fiercely. He roared like a ferocious wolf pouncing on its prey. Chu Li smiled nonchalantly. There are still 6 masters lying in ambush, right? You still want to pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger? Let's call them up at the same time, so that we can deal with them at once. Huang Feiyun's face darkened, and he said coldly, You do have some skills. I have underestimated you. I've overestimated you." Chu Li shook his head and said, "You don't know how to hide your desires and are driven by your instincts. What a joke. Hee hee." Huang Feiyun licked his lips, and his expression became even more ferocious and terrifying. A murderous aura emanated from him. "Just a little trick, and you obediently fell into the trap. How dare you talk big? Just a little trick." Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "Why go through so much trouble? First, you threw stones to test our strength, but in the end, you lost your men. If all of you ambushed us in our residence and attacked us together, we would have been crippled no matter how strong we were." He was trying to sow discord and attack Huang Feiyun. It was important to throw stones to test the waters. Otherwise, if they rashly attacked without knowing their strength, they might be wiped out. The merciful did not command an army, and this was the way of using troops. No matter how much one loved his soldiers, once they were on the battlefield, they would be used as chess pieces. Huang Feiyun had asked Jin Wu and the others to test the waters. First, he wanted to find out Chu Li and Shao Qi's methods, infuriate them, and make them lose their minds. Second, he wanted to make them think that their masters were the same as Jin Wu and the other two. In reality, Jin Wu and the other two were the weakest in martial arts, and the other 6 were far better than Jin Wu. Huang Feiyun was arrogant, but he was also somewhat scheming. After all, he was trained on the battlefield. Nonetheless, in the face of strength, all of these were like castles in the air and could not withstand a single blow. Shao Qi's regal sword scripture was rare in the world, and she was superior to them. Huang Feiyun chuckled coldly. "Don't be so stubborn. I'd like to see what you're capable of. Third Lady Shao, please excuse me. Come out." He shouted. 6 silhouettes floated down like cotton. 4 of them entered through the window, and 2 of them floated up from the staircase. They sealed off the path from top to bottom and formed an encirclement. 4 old men and 2 middle-aged men stared coldly at Shao Qi. Chu Li said, "I've recruited many masters." "Ha! These are all masters from our military," Huang Feiyun said proudly. "Third Lady Shao, please advise us." "Go." He waved his hand, and the 6 men charged forward to attack Chu Li. Chu Li took a diagonal step and cleverly avoided 4 swords, 1 fist force, and 1 palm energy. Huang Feiyun frowned. This step seemed like a coincidence, and he easily dodged them, but it was ingenious. Huang Feiyun could not use this step, so it was obvious that Head Chief Chu had an excellent step technique. He must force him to reveal it. Shao Qi's sword flashed like lightning. Instead of saving Chu Li, she took a diagonal step and pierced an old man's chest with ease and ease. Huang Feiyun's expression changed slightly, and his eyes flickered. He looked between Chu Li and Shao Qi, and finally pounced on Shao Qi. Chu Li was not a threat, and Shao Qi's swordsmanship was far stronger than what was rumored. Her sword was swift, and her body movement technique was swift, so it was impossible to defend against her. Huang Feiyun unsheathed the long saber at his waist and slashed at Shao Qi in a swift and ruthless manner. Chu Li gently swung his arm. TSS! A cold light flashed, and a whistling sound was heard. An old man turned his head and stared at Chu Li in disbelief. A flying blade pierced through his back and exited his chest, shooting toward another middle-aged master. While the middle-aged master was dodging, Shao Qi slipped and evaded Huang Feiyun's blade force. She appeared in front of the middle-aged master and pierced his dantian with her sword, instantly crippling his martial arts. "Damn it!" Huang Feiyun roared. Not only did he fail to suppress Shao Qi, but she had also injured 2 people, and the culprit was Chu Li, whose martial arts had been crippled. He felt that he had been fooled, and he was furious. Although he was arrogant, He was cautious. After Chu Li appeared, he carefully examined Chu Li and confirmed that he did not have any aura of inner energy on him. There were no signs of a martial artist, and his eyes were dull. How could he suddenly shoot a flying blade? Chu Li smiled and said, "My martial arts recover very quickly too." "Damn it!" Huang Feiyun turned and pounced at Chu Li, and his blade formed an arc of light that fell toward Chu Li. Chu Li took a diagonal step and easily dodged it. He had combined the nature restoration manifestation and the omniscient mirror to predict the momentum of his blade. Huang Feiyun gritted his teeth and evaded it. He did not believe that Chu Li could dodge it. After all, Chu Li's martial arts had been crippled. However, Chu Li easily dodged it. His body was strong now. First, he had the divine light body and the heavenly demonic body, and then he had consumed several wind speed pills and giant spirit pills. Even without inner energy, his speed and strength were not much different from a grandmaster. Chapter 1001. Huang Feiyun was enraged, and his attacks became faster and faster. Xiao Qi suddenly pointed her finger. Ding! Huang Feiyun's long blade stopped, and the light finger force hit the long blade like a boulder. Chu Li swung his arm the moment Xiao Qi pointed her finger. They moved almost at the same time, as he was very confident in Xiao Qi's martial arts. TSS! A cold light flashed, and the flying blade pierced through Huang Feiyun's right chest without any resistance. Blood spurted out, and it shot into the pillar next to him. Huang Feiyun widened his eyes in disbelief. Chu Li smiled. "My martial arts has been crippled, but I can still throw 2 blades. How did it feel?" "I'll kill you!" Huang Feiyun roared in frustration. He did not expect to be defeated by Chu Li, whom he had always looked down on. It was difficult for him to accept. His roar was hoarse and weak, as if all his strength had been taken away by the flying blade. His right chest seemed to be leaking, and he did not even have the strength to speak. "If I were you, I'd quickly heal myself." Chu Li took a step back and shook his head. The 4 masters around Huang Feiyun were also in disbelief. Chu Li's body did not have any inner energy flow, not even when he used the flying blade. It was as if the blade was purely made with his strength, which was unbelievable. While the other 4 were shaken, Xiao Qi suddenly sped up and crippled the 4 of them with one sword strike. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction and clapped his hands. "It's finally settled. Huang Feiyun, clean up our residence. You have 2 days, or else I won't just cripple your martial arts next time. I'll cripple your limbs too. All right." Huang Feiyun's eyes were bloodshot as he said, fiercely. Xiao Qi approached him and pierced his dantian with her sword. "You!" Huang Feiyun glared at Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi glanced at him, but did not say a word. Chu Li said, "Huang Feiyun, I heard that your martial arts recovered very quickly. Do you have some secret skill?" Huang Feiyun sneered. "What, you want to learn?" Chu Li nodded. "If you hand over the secret skill, I'll spare you. Otherwise, we'll look for you in a few days and cripple your martial arts. We'll see if your secret skill recovers faster or we cripple you faster. Dream on." Huang Feiyun sneered. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Why bother? Xiao Qi arrived in front of an old man. With a flash of her sword, the old man's left arm hung limply as the tendons in his hand were severed. "Ah!" the old man roared. Xiao Qi glanced at him. She could see through people's hearts and knew that these fellows weren't good people. They had bullied others and taken advantage of women, so she definitely couldn't let them off so easily. She went to another old man, and with a flash of her sword, the tendon of his left hand was severed again. She then walked towards another old man. Ignoring the old man's cowering, she once again broke the tendons in his left hand. Her footsteps did not stop as she walked towards the last old man. "Wait, I'll speak," Huang Feiyun hurriedly said. This move was too vicious. Even if he could keep the secret skill in the end, he would be alienated and become a loner. Moreover, he might not be able to endure it. Seeing how ruthless Third Miss Xiao was, she would not be soft-hearted in dealing with him. Chu Li said, "A wise man submits to circumstances. Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did you have to make everyone suffer like this?" "I obtained the secret skill by accident. It's hidden in my house," Huang Feiyun said. Chu Li nodded. "What are you waiting for? Let's go." Huang Feiyun scoffed. "Let them go first. Otherwise, I won't hand it over even if you kill me." Chu Li shook his head. "What's the point of playing these little tricks? Let them report to the people you've secretly trained, right?" Not only did Huang Feiyun have Jin Wu and the other 8 masters, but he also had 6 other masters in the dark. He befriended these masters through the secret skill that allowed him to recover his martial arts. They usually had nothing to do with him, nor did they contact him. They would only help during crucial moments. These masters were his backup plan to turn the tables. Usually, his opponents would relax after they had won, giving them an opportunity to take advantage of. Huang Feiyun's heart trembled, but he pretended to be stubborn and sneered. "Are you afraid?" He seemed to be following Chu Li's words, putting on a brave front, but cowardly inside. Chu Li smiled. "I won't cause unnecessary trouble if I can avoid it. These people won't report, right?" Huang Feiyun stared at him coldly. He had already given up on the idea of reporting to Chu Li. These 6 martial arts masters could only be used as ambushes. They could only deal a fatal blow when Chu Li let his guard down. Once Chu Li was on his guard, there would be no chance to turn the tables. It would be better for them to wait for their martial arts to recover before gathering together to attack Chu Li. "You're a tactful person. Let's go," Chu Li said. Huang Feiyun took a deep breath. "All right, I'll admit defeat. You can't kill me anyway." It was an ironclad rule that no one was allowed to kill an adjacent town. Just like how one was not allowed to stay for long, it was an ironclad rule set by the emperor. Anyone who violated this rule would either be sent to the town defense prefecture or the people from the inner and outer mausoleums. Chu Li said, "If I learn your secret skill and recover my martial arts as soon as possible, I won't be afraid of you." Huang Feiyun scoffed and frowned. Chu Li was already so powerful without any martial arts. If he could injure Huang Feiyun, how shocking would it be to recover his martial arts? Head Chief Chu Li was famous in Fairy's capital, and it was not a fluke. There were many more masters in Fairy's capital than here, Chu Li said, "but I advise you not to play any tricks, or everyone will be in trouble." "Let's go," Huang Feiyun scoffed. Xiao Qi grabbed Huang Feiyun with one hand and placed her other hand on Chu Li's shoulder. Then they glided out of the window as if they were riding on the wind. She could read Huang Feiyun's mind and knew where he lived. They landed in a small and narrow residence. This residence was even more dilapidated than Su Huanda's residence. It was hard to imagine that it belonged to the prestigious underground master, Huang Feiyun. Huang Feiyun usually did not stay here. After entering the residence, Huang Feiyun went into the study and pried open a wooden board. He took out a small box and handed it to Chu Li. "This contains the secret skill that I obtained by accident. It can help me recover my martial arts quickly." Chu Li looked at him with a faint smile. Xiao Qi said, "This isn't the real one. Take the real one out." "You're good." Huang Feiyun glanced at them and pointed at the bookshelf. "Move this away." Xiao Qi gently lifted the bookshelf as if it was made of paper and easily moved it away. Huang Feiyun looked at her deeply and sighed. He slowly walked to the wall and knocked on it. Finally, he pulled out a hollow brick and handed a small box to Xiao Qi. Is it real this time? Xiao Qi scoffed. Huang Feiyun smiled bitterly. If you don't believe me, I have nothing else to say. At this moment, a black shadow appeared like a ghost. It snatched the wooden box and left. It came and went in an instant and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He. Huang Feiyun laughed. Chu Li and Xiao Qi looked at him and did not chase after him. Huang Feiyun looked at them in surprise. Why aren't you chasing after him? There's no need for that. It's not my secret skill. Chu Li shook his head. Besides, the secret skill is in your head. Huang Feiyun scoffed. Aren't you afraid that I'll write it wrong on purpose? P.S. The following is less than 500 words and does not take up the word count. The first White Robe Fight, the Landlord Tournament. In order to thank the readers for their support, the White Robe Fight, the Landlord Tournament is hereby held. First place, 3,000 RMB second place, 2,000 RMB third place, 1,000 RMB fourth place, 800 RMB fifth place, 600 RMB sixth place, 400 RMB seventh to 10th place, 200 RMB. Those who are not in the top 10, don't be discouraged. 10 lucky prizes will be randomly selected. Those who don't get lucky prizes, don't be discouraged. There's a $1,000 bag waiting for you. Participation requirements. Order all the white robes, add group verification, and sign up. Those who know how to play Fight the Landlord will form a group of 3. The first round will be an overall selection. The management will randomly assign 3 people to a group. The winner must take a screenshot and send it to the management. It must be a large picture. Everyone will only have one chance. If you win, you will be eliminated. The first place will be decided. Time. Mid-Autumn Festival will start at 8 p.m. You can sign up when the announcement is made. Until 12:30 p.m. on the day of the Mid-Autumn Festival. The prize for this event will be sponsored by the Alliance Leader with a dream in her heart. Thank you, Alliance Leader. P.S. Do you think this is the end of the event? No, 1 million Qijin coins will be released. The group will announce the details. Chapter 1002. Xiao Qi said, You still have a third secret manual. Huang Feiyun's face darkened. Chu Li said, Huang Feiyun, you should know that you can't do it again and again. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless. All right. Huang Feiyun took a deep breath and picked up the poetry book on the top of the table. He passed it to Xiao Qi. This is the real one. Xiao Qi quickly flipped through it and passed it to Chu Li. Chu Li nodded and smiled. Thank you, Chiliar Huang. We'll meet again. I hope we never meet again. Huang Feiyun scoffed. Chu Li said, That depends on whether you'll come and provoke us again. If the experts in the dark and the experts in the open join forces, they can fight against us. You can give it a try. Goodbye. I won't see you out. Huang Feiyun said coldly. He felt a chill in his heart. It seemed like he could not hide his thoughts from the two of them. How terrifying. Chu Li said, I'll take my leave then. Xiao Qi put her hand on his shoulder and disappeared from the study. Huang Feiyun let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally sent off the 2 pests. He then frowned and thought about who stole the second secret manual. How dare they snatch food from the tiger's mouth? Chu Li and Xiao Qi fluttered back to the inn. Aren't you going after that guy? Xiao Qi whispered. Chu Li shook his head. It's better to let him suffer a little. He had already noticed the middle-aged man lying outside Huang Feiyun's courtyard with his aura concealed. He was also an ambitious man who wanted to learn from Huang Feiyun's rise. Chu Li was happy to have someone to restrain Huang Feiyun. so he pretended not to know. I'm afraid he'll get greedy, Xiao Qi said. It's not too late to teach him a lesson then, Chu Li said. Xiao Qi nodded. Can you cultivate this secret skill? No problem. Chu Li nodded. How long will it take to recover? Xiao Qi asked. She did not know that Chu Li had the life and death scripture and could recover his martial arts at any time. She was not so worried because he had a divine power. However, it was different now. The environment was dangerous, and it would be troublesome if his divine power was exposed. Chu Li pondered for a moment and said, "A month should be enough." In fact, he was not very interested in this secret manual. This secret skill was derived from the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, but it was far less profound than the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. His understanding of it was very shallow, and it could only speed up the recovery of his martial arts. Practicing this required time, but once the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture was reversed, one could immediately recover their martial arts. The difference between the two was huge. However, since he was using the life and death scripture, he did not need to recover his martial arts. He could instantly replenish his inner energy and recover his cultivation. Your single slice of the universe is extremely powerful, Xiao Qi said. Chu Li nodded. It's a good way to win by surprise. The two of them sat at the stone table in the courtyard and chatted. I don't think Huang Feiyun will be convinced, Xiao Qi said. He's trained in the military, so victory and defeat are common for soldiers. He's indomitable. Chu Li asked, how about we subdue him? Xiao Qi frowned at him. Chu Li replied, I'm not exactly a good person, but I can still be of use to you. You don't have to be stingy when it comes to dispatching me. Xiao Qi gently shook her head. I'm too lazy to worry about this. All right, then we'll beat him until he retreats. Chu Li did not force her. There was a knock on the door. Xiao Qi waved her sleeves, and the courtyard door opened. Two elders stood outside and fist saluted. Are you Chu Li and Third Lady Xiao? Yes. Chu Li stood up and looked at them. Are you from the town defense prefecture? The two elders nodded. We're here to inform you that Third Lady Xiao can only stay here for 7 days. You'll have to leave after that. This is a rule set by the emperor back then. Those who aren't family members are not allowed to accompany you. No problem, Chu Li said. Xiao Qi frowned. How about staying for a month? This is a rule set by the emperor. One of the elders shook his head and sighed. Third Lady Xiao, many people want to stay for a while, but we dare not violate the rules set by the emperor. Otherwise, someone from the inner mausoleum will come. Chu Li said, all right, we won't violate the rule. That's good. We won't disturb you anymore. The two elders' fist saluted and left. They looked kind and polite. After sending the two off, Xiao Qi frowned. My lady, feel free to leave. Chu Li smiled. I can take care of myself. Xiao Qi glared at him. You already knew about this rule, didn't you? Chu Li laughed. I really didn't. I'll stay. Xiao Qi scoffed. Chu Li had no cultivation now. If he did not want to be humiliated, he could only use his divine power. However, once he used his divine power, he would never be able to return to Fairy's capital. He would be trapped here by the emperor forever. Chu Li shook his head. The emperor's rule cannot be violated. Then we'll use the name of a relative. Xiao Qi said. Chu Li was stunned. Xiao Qi said, just say that I'm your wife. Chu Li's eyes widened. Xiao Qi scoffed. Isn't this what you want? Chu Li laughed. This isn't a joke. I'm not joking. Xiao Qi said, there's nothing wrong with marrying you. Are we pretending to be husband and wife? Chu Li asked. Xiao Qi shook her head. A real husband and wife. Chu Li looked at her from head to toe. Xiao Qi scoffed. I'm cultivating the regal sword scripture, not turning myself into a rock. She was not like other women who placed too much importance on relationships. Her original plan was to be single for the rest of her life. She wanted to pursue the ultimate boundary of martial arts and cultivate the regal sword scripture to perfection. She wanted to give up on relationships completely. However, Chu Li had unknowingly walked into her heart. She resisted it because she was cultivating the regal sword scripture. She used the intellectual sword to cut the threads of love, but later on, she realized that it could not be cut off. Every time it seemed like it was cut off, the threads became thinner and harder to notice but stronger. Now, no matter how hard she tried, she could not cut it off. There was always something in her heart. This time, Chu Li's martial arts was crippled. If he was left alone, she did not know what kind of torture he would suffer. Even if he had divine power, it was inevitable. When she thought about it, she could not stand it. Since she was not going to marry anyone, she might as well marry Chu Li. Once she made this decision, she suddenly felt a strong sense of relief. She no longer had to struggle with the shackles of love. She might as well just surrender. There were signs of a breakthrough in the regal sword scripture. Chu Li shook his head. You don't have to do this. You don't want to marry me? Xiao Qi frowned and stared at him. Or, do you have someone else in your heart? Chu Li laughed. How is that possible? Lu Yurong, right? Xiao Qi asked. Chu Li felt that Xiao Qi was exceptionally cute at this moment. She finally had some aura and was no longer as unattainable as a fairy. She is indeed beautiful and smart. She has a tacit understanding with you. Xiao Qi nodded. Chu Li said, she and I are destined to be rivals. Our minds are similar and our temperaments are similar. It's because we are similar that we repel each other. Xiao Qi glanced at him with a faint smile. Chu Li smiled. If that's the case, I'll gladly accept a beauty like you. I have a condition, Xiao Qi said. Say it, Chu Li said. Xiao Qi said, we can't sleep together. The regal sword scripture can't be a virgin. She was slightly shy and tried her best to maintain her cold gaze. However, she was a little evasive. Chu Li was moved by her gaze and wanted to hug her. All right. Chu Li nodded, pretending not to care. Xiao Qi picked up her teacup and took a sip while avoiding Chu Li's burning gaze. Chu Li also picked up his teacup and took a sip while staring at her with a passionate gaze. Chapter 1003. She could not stand Chu Li's gaze, so she put down her teacup and stood up. You should cultivate the secret skill first. Then, she awkwardly hid in the house to avoid Chu Li's gaze. Chu Li touched his chin and shook his head with a smile. No matter what, their relationship had taken a big step forward, which was beyond his expectations. Initially, he asked Xiao Qi to come over because he wanted to slowly strengthen their relationship and break her mental state. He did not expect her to become his wife in one go. Although it was unexpected, he was glad that Xiao Qi's feelings for him were deeper than he thought. Otherwise, based on her personality, she would not have agreed to it even if she sympathized with him. How could he reject her pretentiously? This was a rare opportunity, so he had to seize it. He entered the house to cultivate the secret skill for a while. With the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, he quickly mastered it. However, even if he mastered this skill, his martial arts could not be recovered overnight, so the speed was much faster than normal cultivation. He estimated that he would only need a month to recover his martial arts. To others, it was indeed a rare and precious secret skill. The next day, he stayed in the inn and began to study the white tiger power. To him, the most precious thing about the white tiger power was not the visualization diagram. The spirit tiger in the visualization diagram was far from the real spirit tiger. Generations after generations had not seen the spirit tiger, so the visualization diagram had slowly changed. He had seen the real spirit tiger. If he wanted to see it, he only needed to ask the spirit crane for help. On the other hand, the white tiger power's incantation was too profound for him to understand with his martial arts knowledge. It seemed right, but was actually wrong. He studied it for a day but did not make any progress, so he finally decided to go to the spirit crane's peak. He left the house and went to the courtyard where he found Xiao-Qi cultivating. Her breathing was so weak that it almost disappeared, as if she had fallen into a deep meditative state. Her cultivation level had improved, and it seemed like her mental state had advanced again. He could not help but feel emotional. It seemed like he was Xiao-Qi's inner demon. Once she let go of her inner demon and no longer resisted, her mental state became more harmonious. He suddenly had an epiphany. Could it be this kind of oblivion? Was it forgetfulness to stop clinging to feelings? He ate and drank and let nature take its course. Feeling carefree, he fell into deep thought and at ease, and canceled his plan to go to the spirit crane's peak. Was slowly increasing. She was in a good state. The regal sword scripture would be a pity if she was disturbed. Indeed, so he could only protect her. Xiao-Qi opened her bright eyes when the sun was about to set. From noon to night, there was a flash of lightning in her eyes. Chu could no longer hold back his hunger, and she regained her gentle and clear look. A table full of dishes. She walked into the courtyard and sat by the stone table. She took the chopsticks from Chu Li and picked up some vegetables to eat. Congratulations. Chu Li smiled. You've improved a lot this time. It's all thanks to you, Xiao-Qi said. Chu Li nodded. Indeed, it's all thanks to me. After dinner, let's go back to the residence to take a look. Yes. Xiao-Qi nodded. After eating, the two of them left the inn and strolled along the river. The night breeze blew gently. The moonlight and lanterns shone on the surface of the river. The willow branches by the river swayed gently. Adjacent town was located to the south of the Great Ji dynasty. The weather was warm, and even in late autumn, the night breeze was gentle and moving. Chu Li glanced at Xiao-Qi's face from time to time. Even with a white veil, it could not hide the beauty of her eyes and brows. Her jade-white skin looked especially delicate under the light, exuding a fatal temptation. Xiao-Qi was already able to withstand his burning gaze, and she steadily walked forward. The two of them did not speak. A charming atmosphere floated between them. At this time, silence was better than words. No matter how long the journey was, it would eventually come to an end. Before they knew it, they had arrived in front of two residences. The main door was opened. It had been replaced with a new red door and stone lions. As they walked further in, the parterre had been refurbished. All the precious flowers and plants had been transplanted. As they walked further in, the furniture had changed too. It was not brand new, but some old furniture. These pieces of furniture exuded a sense of simplicity and vicissitudes of life. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. Huang Feiyun really knows how to do things. The bookshelves were once again filled with books. This was what pleased Chu Li the most. He had read some of these books before, but most of them were new. He was more interested in miscellaneous books now because they were often more beneficial for understanding martial arts. You can stay here tonight, Chu Li said. Xiao-Qi nodded. Let's stay here. She then pointed to the west wing. I'll stay there. She originally planned to stay next door, but now that she thought about it, it was not appropriate. If someone really wanted to hurt Chu Li, she might not be able to make it in time. Before his martial arts recovered, it was better to stay in the same residence. I'll go over there, Chu Li said. Xiao-Qi nodded. It's getting late. You should rest early. Before he went to Spirit Crane's Peak, he was a little hesitant about whether he should go there immediately. He was afraid that once he arrived at Spirit Crane's Peak, the two cranes would bring him a few fruits and eat them to recover his martial arts. There were such fruits in 100,000 hills. He had seen it in the 1,000 herb scripture. This way, Shao Qi would not have to stay and accompany him, nor would she have to marry him. If he wanted to be safe, he could wait for 7 days. When the dust had completely settled, he would go to Spirit Crane's Peak. A few more days would not matter. However, after thinking about it, he still decided to go to Spirit Crane's Peak. At noon, the two of them appeared at Spirit Crane's Peak. Then, two white shadows flashed and pounced on Chu Li, pouncing on him. The two cranes were agile and immediately stopped their long beaks and claws. They opened their black and white gem-like eyes and looked at Chu Li curiously, noticing that something was wrong with him. They were blessed by nature and grew extremely fast. They had long reached the level of an adult's intelligence. After a few more months, they might even be smarter than an adult. Chu Li lay on the grass and patted the two's beaks. They looked at him curiously and finally let out a clear cry. Their long beaks lifted Chu Li up, and he landed on the back of one of the spirit cranes. Chu Li quickly reached out and hugged its neck to prevent himself from falling. Its feathers were hard and slippery. If he was not careful, he would slip off. With a clear cry, the two cranes soared into the sky and disappeared into the horizon with Chu Li on their backs. Shao Qi placed her hand in front of her eyebrows and watched them blend into the clouds in the sky. She shook her head helplessly. She did not know where they were taking Chu Li to, but she knew that they would not harm him. She was relieved and sat cross-legged on the boulder to cultivate. The surging spiritual energy made her feel refreshed, and her spirit was exceptionally calm. It was as if she had returned to her mother's embrace. Chu Li's body was high up in the sky. The strong wind brushed against his face like knives and swords. His clothes fluttered in the wind. The cold air kept eroding his body, desperately trying to enter his pores. If it were not for his strong body, he would not have been able to withstand the cold. The two cranes were too fast. Chu Li could not open his eyes. They were a few times faster than the last time he rode on them. However, with the omniscient mirror, he could still see the surrounding scenery clearly. There were white clouds, and the sky was blue. It was so clean that he wanted to lick it. After about an hour, the two cranes suddenly swooped down at an even faster speed. Chu Li quickly hugged them tightly and looked at the scenery below. The two cranes rushed towards a pool of blue water. It was like a green mirror reflecting the sky. When they were near the water, they suddenly slowed down. With a shake, Chu Li fell into the pool. Bang! Chu Li fell into the pool. Chapter 1004. P.S. Update complete. Chu Li felt that if he did not channel, he would be torn apart by the spiritual energy. He had no choice but to use the cloud slashing power. The extremely pure spiritual energy in the surroundings continued to surge into his body. The cloud slashing power went round and round, and in the end, it was so pure that his meridians started to ache. However, the spiritual energy in the surroundings continued to surge into his body and started to rush to repair his meridians. The spiritual energy turned into waves of ice-cold energy that circulated in his meridians. Chu Li continued to purify the inner energy of the cloud slashing power. Round after round, the inner energy of the cloud slashing power turned into clear water, no different from the water outside his body. His body seemed to become heavier. The inner energy flowed smoothly and steadily like flowing mercury. Chu Li leaped up and stepped on the water. His qigong had improved by another level. The meridians in his body were strengthened and his internal organs were strengthened. This pool of water was indeed marvelous, and the benefits he obtained were even greater than the last time. The two cranes cried out. Chu Li leaped onto the back of one of the spirit cranes and hugged its neck. The spirit crane soared into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it had disappeared into the sky. It left the jade-green pond behind, leaving the jade-green pond water behind. Chu Li suddenly pressed on the head of the spirit cranes and transmitted the scene in his mind to the spirit cranes. The spirit cranes cried out, and the spirit cranes beside them did the same. Finally, they changed direction and flew to the sky above a giant peak. The two cranes circled above the giant peak. Chu Li could see a spirit tiger lying on a huge rock at the peak of the giant peak. This spirit tiger was a few times bigger than a normal tiger. It was lying down lazily and basking in the sun like a huge cat. It seemed like it could not lift its spirits. He had ridden a spirit crane to see the spirit tiger before, but it was not this huge. It seemed like the one he saw last time was a small spirit tiger. Sensing the movement in the sky, the spirit tiger looked up at the two spirit cranes, but did not move. It was as if it knew that the spirit cranes would not disturb it. Not far away, a small spirit tiger was playing with a rock. It rolled and leaped, practicing its predatory movements. Chu Li was impressed and suddenly let out a long howl. Roar! The spirit tiger that was lying on the rock and basking in the sun suddenly stood up and let out a roar. The roar shook the sky and startled the birds into flying, forming a dense patch in the sky. Chu Li smiled when he saw its arrogance. This was exactly what he wanted. Suddenly, he disappeared from the back of the spirit crane and appeared at the peak of the spirit tiger peak. Standing on a huge rock, he sized up the spirit tiger from 100 meters away. Even from 100 meters away, the torrential aura of the spirit tiger was so thick that it was suffocating Su Zimo. However, Mahavairokkana's Immobility Sutra came into play and dispelled the frightening aura before long. Standing up, the spirit tiger that was as large as an elephant leaped into the air. As if it had wings under its ribs, it leaped over 100 meters and pounced on Chu Li. The snow-white fur on its body rippled like the waves of the sea, glaring under the sunlight. Before the tiger even arrived, a violent force was already rushing towards Chu Li, almost suffocating him. Chu Li yelled and threw a punch. The purest cloud slashing power was used to control the divine light fist, and its power was the strongest. The spirit tiger waved its fan-like front paw and tore apart the fist force of the divine light fist as easily as tearing paper. Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to observe down to the smallest detail. He could clearly see the appearance of his fist force and the strange force contained in its claws. When his fist force came into contact with the tiger's force, it was like tofu in front of a knife. He took a step forward and took advantage of the moment when the spirit tiger landed on the rock, and its momentum was at its weakest to fly up and collide with it. Bang! With a muffled sound, he was bounced back. The spirit tiger's body was made of flesh and blood, but it was as hard as a rock. The force of his collision did not penetrate the spirit tiger's body at all, and was reflected back into his body. He rolled down the rock and just happened to dodge the spirit tiger's huge paw. Uffed! Stone powder flew everywhere. The paw had turned the rock into powder. Only after this collision did he realize how large the spirit tiger was. He was only as tall as the spirit tiger's front leg, and had to jump to reach its stomach. The spirit tiger's paw was as big as a fan, so it could defeat him as easily as stepping on an ant. Roar! The spirit tiger roared, causing Chu Li's mind to tremble. It was like thunder exploding in his ears. He quickly disappeared on the spot. The spirit tiger's paw landed on the spot where he was standing. A huge pit appeared on the rock, and stone powder flew everywhere. Roar! The spirit tiger roared again and leaped towards Chu Li. Chu Li punched at the spirit tiger's stomach. The spirit tiger shook its fur nonchalantly. Its snow-white skin surged like waves, and its fur emitted a dazzling white light, easily dispersing the fist force. The fist force was blocked, and the ferocious claws had already landed on Chu Li's head. Chu Li disappeared on the spot again in a flash. Roar! The spirit tiger was instantly enraged. It was enraged, and its murderous intent grew even stronger after being dodged by an insect-like person time and time again. Chu Li's vision darkened. The roar directly shook his mind. A clear sound rang out. Chu Li was instantly refreshed, and his vision returned to normal. He could already feel the tiger's claws approaching his face. At the last moment, he barely dodged and disappeared, then reappeared on the back of the spirit cranes. The two spirit cranes soared into the sky, ignoring the roar of the spirit tiger on the giant peak behind them. They had now grown up and were no longer afraid of the spirit tiger's roar. Chu Li touched his face and felt a burning pain. He opened his hand and saw that it was covered in blood. Although the tiger's claws did not hit him, they had already hurt him. The might of the spirit tiger was truly terrifying. He had experienced it once before, but it was not as deep as this time. The scene of the white tiger visualization taught by the White Tiger sect was worlds apart from the real spirit tiger. It was like the difference between a ferocious tiger and a sick cat. After all these years, spirit beasts had become legendary creatures. More and more people had not seen them and could not imagine the might of spirit beasts. The spirit cranes landed, and Chu Li glided to Xiao-Qi's side. Xiao-Qi slowly opened her eyes and looked at him. "Have you recovered your martial arts?" Chu Li smiled and nodded. "Yes, I've recovered my martial arts." Xiao-Qi smiled, as expected of 100,000 hills. Chu Li said, "When I return, I'll have to suppress my martial arts and pretend that I haven't recovered. Otherwise, it'll be too suspicious." Xiao-Qi nodded. Chu Li hesitated. "Actually, you can leave. I can protect myself now." Xiao-Qi glanced at him. "You want me to leave?" Chu Li smiled. "Of course not." "That's it," Xiao-Qi said. "I won't go back on my words." Chu Li looked at her. "Then don't regret it." Xiao-Qi glared at him. Chu Li smiled. Although he could tell from Xiao-Qi's character that she would not leave, he was still worried. After all, it was too urgent. Now that he heard what Xiao-Qi said, he was completely relieved. "What's with your face?" Xiao-Qi stared at Chu Li's face. Chu Li shook his head. "I fought with a spirit tiger. I'll go back today and come back tomorrow." "All right." Xiao-Qi nodded. After they returned to the residence, they went to their respective rooms to rest. The next day, Chu Li went to Spirit Tiger Peak again to fight with the Spirit Tiger. However, he could only rely on his body technique and could not shake the Spirit Tiger at all. The powerful divine light fist felt like it was tickling the Spirit Tiger. Without imminent skyline and God's limbs, it would have been smashed into meat paste. Moreover, the Spirit Tiger's roar was powerful. Although it did not have any divine power, it was extremely fast. Moreover, its intelligence was not inferior to that of an adult. It was arrogant and could not tolerate Chu Li repeatedly escaping from its claws. Therefore, when Chu Li appeared, it began to chase after him. Chapter 1005. A bright moon hung in the horizon like a rotating wheel of ice, and its cold and clear radiance illuminated the world. The public house was brightly lit. Even at night, the lights in the house were not extinguished. It was as bright as day. Many people were busy in the house. Some were cultivating, some were reading, some were planting spirit herbs, and some were boating on the lake. On Chu Li's island, Chu Li and Xiao Qi suddenly appeared in his courtyard. There was a glorious tree planted in the courtyard. It was rich in spiritual energy, and all kinds of spirit herbs were growing at night. Xiao Qi's waist broke free from his hand and whispered, "I'll go back first. You can come back tomorrow." Chu Li nodded. Xiao Qi left with a refreshing fragrance. Xueling fluttered over. "Master?" Her shiny black hair fluttered in the wind. She wore a white robe, and her face was as clear as jade. As her mastery of the crescent cryptic deepened, her temperament gradually changed and became colder. Chu Li took out a piece of paper and passed it to her. "Prepare some spirit herbs. I'm going to start refining pills." "Yes." Xue took the paper. "Master, do you want to take a rest first?" That's fine." Chu Li nodded. "Is there anything going on recently?" Xue shook her head as she brewed tea. "There's nothing going on outside. It's just that Master Xiao Taiying and Madame quarreled again. Madame ran back to her parents' house." Chu Li laughed. "Master Xiao Taiying really can't control Madame." Xue pursed her lips and laughed. "Master Xiao Taiying's tricks are useless in front of Madame. She's not afraid of him at all. He loses every time. I think he'll go back to fetch Madame in 2 days." Chu Li said helplessly, "Forget it. They can go and fight. You must bring enough protectors. Once I fall, they probably can't sit still anymore and are ready to make trouble." Xue nodded lightly. "Master Xiao Taiying's matter has spread here. What's everyone's reaction?" "Everyone said that we should just ignore the emperor and go back to the public house." Xue said, "The emperor can't come to the public house to ask for people anyway." Chu Li said, "There's no rush." "How long will Master Xiao Taiying be staying?" Xue said, "How about I go over and serve Master Xiao Taiying?" Chu Li shook his head. "Maids aren't allowed. Other than family members, no one else." "Will Lady Xiao Taiying come back too?" "She stays." Xueling was confused. Chu Li smiled. "From now on, she will be Madame Chu." Xueling's eyes widened in disbelief. "It can't be?" Chu Li replied snappily. "Is it that surprising?" "Young master, are you really going to marry third miss?" "Yes." "Will the eldest young master agree?" "I've come back this time to ask around. I don't think it'll be a big problem," Chu Li said with a smile. Xueling shook her head and said, "I don't think Master Xiao Taiying will agree to it." Third lady, Chu Li did not have a strong concept of being a disciple. After all, in his past life, he was only in the lower middle class. He had never been involved in the upper echelons of society. Xue grew up here, so she had a deep-rooted concept of hierarchy. Although Chu Li was rank 1, he did not come from a noble family and was congenitally weak. Chu Li said, Let's watch Master Xiao Taiying for now. Shui pursed her lips and smiled. If you can really marry the third lady, you will be famous all over the world. Am I not famous enough now? Chuli scoffed. Shui Ling giggled and shook her head. She ran off to prepare the spirit herbs. He grew from a servant to a chief and finally married the lady. This was indeed a mysterious story. Perhaps everyone would know that compared to Chu Li of the north and Du Feng of the south, this story would attract more people. After all, many people who were not from the martial arts world did not care about martial arts masters. The next afternoon, Chu Li finally finished refining a batch of tiger bone pills. He then went to the Jade Guardian Island. The bright sun shone on his head. A gentle breeze swept across the surface of the lake. It brought with it a refreshing and slightly chilly feeling. It swept past the lush willow branches and arrived at a gazebo. It brushed past Xiao Taiying, Xiao Baihe, and Chu Li's faces. In the gazebo, Xiao Taiying and Xiao Baihe sat on one side, while Chu Li sat opposite them. Xiao Taiying was still handsome and calm. He stared coldly at Chu Li. Xiao Baihe was handsome and extraordinary. He smiled at Chu Li. After a while, Xiao Taiying looked at Chu Li and sighed. You really want to marry my sister? Chu Li nodded. Master Xiao Taiying, did I make things difficult for you? Not at all. Xiao Taiying shook his head. Actually, no matter who my sister wants to marry, I won't object. As for my sister's marriage, in short, as long as my sister is willing to marry, I won't object. Chu Li said, Master Xiao Taiying, don't worry. I'll cherish Lady Xiao. I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried that you'll be under too much pressure. It'll damage your reputation as head chief Chu. Xiao Taiying sighed. After all, he was an orphan. He grew up in a temple. He had a lonely life. His family background was so weak that it could not be any weaker. If he married his sister, there would definitely be people who would be jealous of him. Of course, there would be people who would be envious. However, these envious people were mostly people of the lower class. They were far from the scholarly officials. Chu Li smiled. What's so important about my reputation? I'll just ignore them. The power of gossip is not bad. Xiao Taiying shook his head. Don't ignore it. I'm afraid the emperor won't transfer you back to the fairies' capital. Once Chu Li became the son-in-law of the House of High Duke, his status would be completely different from that of a chief. He would need to be cautious when using him. He might not be able to return to the secret guardian's hall. Chu Li said, It's fine. I can meditate and cultivate. Xiao Taiying smiled. You have God's limbs. You can come back at any time. You're not afraid. However, it's uncomfortable to be sneaking around. I'll send a memorial saying that you should return to the House of High Duke if you want to hold a wedding. At least you can stay in the House of High Duke, and you won't have to suffer. Chu Li shook his head. Eldest master, I want to stay there and take a look. Staying in the House of High Duke was indeed a great luxury. His status was respected, and no one dared to defy him. However, it was too easy to lose his fighting spirit. Becoming an enlightened master was still far away. The imperial mausoleum had the secret of enlightened master. He had never given up. He wanted to find a chance to touch this mystery. The first step was to get in touch with the people in the inner mausoleum. All right, it's up to you. Xiao Taiying said no more. You've thought it through more thoroughly than us. Since you've made up your mind, I won't try to persuade you. Are you not going to hold the wedding? Not for now, Chu Li said. Xiao Taiying sighed. It'll be hard on my sister. I'll spread the news. Chu Li gave a fist salute. Xiao Baihe laughed. Big brother, I've always been worried that no one would dare to marry third sister. Third sister is cold. She doesn't care about men at all. She's too smart. which man would be able to tame her? In front of her, everyone would feel ashamed and pressured to the point that they can't even breathe. Co Tying scoffed. You've got guts to say that. Co Baiha quickly looked around. When he realized that Co Chi was not around, he let out a sigh of relief. Chu Li chuckled with a proud expression. What Co Baiha said was true. There were not many men who could remain calm in front of Co Chi, not to mention having other thoughts. Shuo Feiyang slowly walked up to the third floor of the restaurant. His sapphire blue robe made his face look even more radiant and gentle. He looked as handsome as jade. When he reached the third floor, his cold eyes scanned the surroundings. He saw a middle-aged man sitting by the window. He frowned and went forward to sit opposite him. The middle-aged man tossed a jade bottle to him. There's a tiger bone pill inside. After consuming it, your physique will improve greatly. You haven't been cultivating hard enough. I've been cultivating hard. Do you think I'm like you, head chief? Shuo Feiyang said impatiently. The middle-aged man was Chu Li. Shuo Feiyang knew that Chu Li's bone-shrinking technique was top-notch. It was easy for him to transform into this. He did not find it strange that Chu Li sneaked into the fairy's capital. Chu Li scoffed. You've been slacking. You've been living a peaceful life. It's not that. I've been stuck at a bottleneck in my martial arts. I've been thinking of ways to break through. Shuo Feiyang scoffed. You'll be able to break through if you consume this, Chu Li said. You've gone down the wrong path. You've underestimated your body. You need to cultivate your body and your energy at the same time. Is that so? It's up to you, whether you believe it or not. Chu Li scoffed. This tiger bone pill is very precious. It seems like you don't want it. Chapter 1006. Chu Li raised the wine glass to his lips and turned away from Zhuo Feiyang to observe the scenery outside. He asked casually, "How's the progress with King Jing?" Zhuo Feiyang shook his head. "It's not going well. My martial arts is too weak, and I'm not qualified to get close to him. I've been guarding the imperial residence." "Don't rush," Chu Li calmly said. "Being too greedy will only make things worse. Let's take it step by step. This isn't something that can be done in a year or two." "How long?" Zhuo Feiyang stared at him. "Don't tell me it's a lifetime? You'll know in 10 years. Chu Li pondered. "It might be even longer. You should be prepared to stay in the imperial residence for a long time. 10, 20, or even 50 years. Then would I still be a member of the High Duke's public house?" Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. "I think I should just join him. He has a better future." "Sure." Chu Li nodded. "As long as you can escape the High Duke's public house." "Humph." Zhuo Feiyang glared at him helplessly. "But he's been keeping a low profile recently. He doesn't even interact with the courtiers. What do you think of him?" "How would I know? You're ambitious." Chu Li smiled. "How can I not care about this? I think he's too conservative." Zhuo Feiyang did not hold back anymore. There was no need for him to hide anything from Chu Li. This is a great opportunity. Now that King Ping has relinquished his military power, no one in the imperial court can compare to him in terms of reputation. We should take this opportunity to rope in more courtiers and increase our prestige. Chu Li smiled. "I'll just be your protector. Once my martial arts become stronger, I'll be able to get close to him and gain some knowledge. I'm leaving." He stood up and left. "You." Zhuo Feiyang glared at Chu Li's back angrily. He had been underestimated. The bright afternoon sun shone brightly. Chu Li floated down from the back of the spirit crane. The spirit tiger on the boulder at the peak of the mountain roared and took the opportunity when Chu Li was about to land on the ground to pounce on him. The spirit tiger's snow-white fur shone beautifully under the sunlight. Its claws were so powerful that Chu Li would be torn to pieces if he was hit. Chu Li joined his palms together in midair. A white tiger silhouette quickly formed and crashed into the spirit tiger. The spirit tiger turned its head away without a care in the world, avoiding its eyes. When the white tiger phantom collided with its neck, its snow-white fur quivered like ripples on the surface of water. Instantly, it dispelled the shocking force of the spirit focus attack, and its speed did not decrease at all. Chu Li disappeared in a flash and reappeared on the back of the spirit tiger. Woo! An angry roar sounded. Chu Li felt as if his ears had been deafened. His vision turned black, and he felt dizzy. The power of this roar was truly astonishing. If he had not activated Mahavairocana's immobility scripture with all his might, he would have passed out immediately. Blocking the roar of the spirit tiger could activate Mahavairocana's immobility scripture. Mahavairocana's immobility scripture wasn't eye-catching among the four scriptures, but it was profound and unfathomable. It could strengthen one's mental strength and counter divine arts, as well as negate the restraints of others. Originally, he could not use his divine powers in the Great Light Scripture and Mahavairocana's immobility scripture. Now, however, he could counteract and restrain them, allowing him to maintain his divine powers freely. If he could continue strengthening it, he might be able to see through Zhishan's thoughts the next time he faced him. Zhishan had always been his greatest enemy. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture was mysterious and unfathomable. It had mysterious tricks and was impossible to guard against. Chu Li grabbed onto the smooth and flexible tiger fur to prevent himself from being flung away. The spirit tiger charged forward and then stopped abruptly. Chu Li was like a nail nailed to the tiger's back. However, the tiger fur was so smooth that it took him a lot of strength to resist the huge inertia. Seeing that this trick was not working, the spirit tiger suddenly turned over and rolled. Chu-Li suddenly disappeared from the tiger's back. However, as soon as it stood up, Chu-Li reappeared and rode on its back. Woo! The spirit tiger roared again, louder this time. Chu-Li's vision turned black. He desperately activated Mahavairocana's immobility scripture, and the speed at which the lotus appeared increased by several times. It kept strengthening his mental strength and withstanding the spiritual attack of the roar. Chu-Li endured the roar and held onto the tiger's fur tightly, allowing the spirit tiger to jump on the mountain peak. From one boulder to another, it was as agile as a cat, and its speed was extremely fast. Especially when it jumped and landed, it was abrupt and violent. Chu-Li was unmoved and firmly nailed to the tiger's back. There was a formless, murderous aura on the spirit tiger's body. Chu-Li could already withstand it now. Staying close to the spirit tiger's muscles and aura, he had a deeper understanding of the spirit tiger and a deeper understanding of it. He had been constantly entangled with the spirit tiger because he wanted to find the feeling that he was the spirit tiger and the spirit tiger was him. Then he could comprehend the white tiger power. He did not have much hope for the power of the white tiger power. He wanted to cultivate it to perfection and then become an enlightened master. However, he slowly realized that he had still underestimated the white tiger power. After staying close to the tiger for a few days, he had comprehended the first level of the white tiger power and realized that it was very powerful. The key to the inner energy of the white tiger power was the murderous aura. If one could not comprehend and master that layer of murderous aura, the power of the inner energy would be mediocre, similar to that of the white tiger sect. However, after mastering this trace of murderous aura, the inner energy of the white tiger power would be solid and pure. Moreover, its lethality was shocking. It was not something that ordinary inner energy could compare to. In terms of lethality and destructive power, it was even better than the divine light technique. The source of this layer of murderous aura was one's spirit. Without the spirit of the king of beasts, it would be difficult to comprehend this trace of murderous aura. Then, the inner energy of the white tiger power would fade away, and one could only rely on inner energy and the white tiger killing skill to win. Inner energy was like a knife, while the murderous aura was like the edge of the knife. Without the edge of the knife, it was a blunt knife that relied on great strength, not sharpness. With this trace of murderous aura, the knife would have a sharp edge. It was not a competition of strength, but sharpness. It was a completely different realm and power. It could not be mentioned in the same breath. Because of this, he had been risking his life to entangle with the spirit tiger. The spirit tiger was extremely powerful and lived up to its name as the king of beasts. In front of it, Chu-Li was like a 3-year-old child and posed no threat at all. If the spirit tiger succeeded even a little, Chu-Li would definitely die a horrible death. If he made a mistake and its claws landed on his body, he would be crushed to pieces. No matter how powerful the life and death scripture was, it would be useless. It was this life or death danger that stimulated his potential to the maximum, desperately increasing his cultivation level and the sharpness of his spirit. The spirit tiger was so much stronger that he could not afford to make even the slightest mistake, or he would die. After entangling with the spirit tiger for a while, Chu-Li suddenly disappeared from the tiger's back and appeared on the back of the spirit crane in the sky. The spirit crane was circling in the sky. With a clear cry, it flew away from the spirit tiger peak and returned to the spirit crane's peak. Shao Qi was meditating and cultivating on a rock. Her clothes were as white as snow, and she sat there like a white jade statue. When she heard Chu Li's return, Xiao Qi slowly opened her eyes. She knew it was time to leave. When the two returned to adjacent town, it was already dusk, and the lanterns were lit. The two went to a restaurant and enjoyed the scenery of the small town while they ate. After their meal, the two strolled back to the residence and returned to their respective houses to comprehend martial arts. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Seeing that everything was peaceful in the town, Chu Li returned to Gale City. When he arrived at Gale City, he secretly looked for Jiang Kuai and gave him a tiger bone pill to help Jiang Kuai improve his martial arts. Jiang Kuai's foundation was solid, so his cultivation level improved very quickly after he entered the Grandmaster's boundary. However, he could not compare to the 4 major sects, so he needed some external help. The tiger bone pill would strengthen his physique. When he returned to his residence in Gale City and was about to rest, he noticed Li Wulin and Lu Zhen gliding over. They were here to bid farewell and to go to Falling Autumn City to support Emo Qianjun again. The battle there was fierce, and they were short of manpower. Chapter 1007. P.S. Update complete. The moonlight was as clear as water. The 3 of them sat in the gazebo as the night breeze brushed past their faces. It was late autumn, and the night was starting to feel like winter. Chu Li frowned and looked gloomy. His Zhao De disguise had a dark face to begin with. Now his face was even darker, and it was scary. The air in the gazebo seemed to have frozen. Several lanterns lit up the courtyard as if it was daytime. The 2 women's faces looked especially beautiful under the light. Chu Li was not in the mood to appreciate it. He frowned and scoffed. What is the saint trying to do? The saint can't do anything. We don't have enough manpower, and we can't let our secluded seniors leave the mountain. Li Rulin shook her head. Don't look so worried. We're not 3-year-olds. We can take care of ourselves. It's not the same. Chuli said impatiently. You're going to Falling Autumn City. Falling Autumn City isn't that scary. It's not like we haven't been there before. Li Rulin smiled. Chuli scoffed. Ask Senior Sister Lu if it's scary. Lu Jin sighed. Someone has to go and help. Otherwise, are we supposed to watch our senior brothers and sisters fall into danger? I'm most worried about Mo Qianjun. Chuli said angrily. He looks like a straightforward person, but he's a cunning one. I'm worried that you'll help him count the money after he betrays you. He's not that cunning. Li Rulin laughed. What kind of people do you think we are? Chuli said. Senior Sister Li, you're smart, but you don't know how sinister people can be. He's capable of anything. Nothing can escape the saint's eyes. He won't dare to do anything, Lu Xin said. Junior brother Zhao, you don't have to worry too much. Don't worry. We'll be careful, Li Rulin said. Sigh. Li shook his head. Besides Mo Qianjun, there's also Monk Shishan. He's too scary. You'll definitely die if you encounter him. I don't know what the saint is thinking. She's making you take such a huge risk. Besides us, there are 2 senior sisters, Li Rulin said. They're patrols too. Even if the 4 of you work together, you won't be able to keep your lives if you encounter Monk Shishan. Chuli shook his head and said, that's why when we encounter him, we'll immediately use our secret skills to escape. Even if we're like Senior Brother Ji, we won't be able to fight him with our lives on the line. We won't be able to defeat him at all. I understand. Li Rulin said snappily. Are you really? Gather? You Lu Tai? The Imperial Guard's magnetic filter collapsed. Groove brush cut. Sleeve engraving stem? Is it true that Benjua Sun's wages tanning Wu? Azimuth. It's best to live in seclusion in the Great Light Peak. Li quickly nodded and said, Senior Sister Li, think about it. Once you're done with this mission, return to the peak and live in seclusion. Don't come out and take risks anymore. If the Qiu dynasty and the Li dynasty go to war, I don't know how many people will die. How can I hide when the country is in danger? Li Rulin replied snappily. All right, we're just informing you and checking up on you. Since you're fine, we can leave with peace of mind. Chuli sighed and took out a jade bottle from his inner pocket. He handed it to Li Rulin. There are a few light pills in here. Keep them in your mouth when you're fighting the enemy. Don't be reluctant. I have more after you finish them. Li Rulin accepted the bottle and smiled. The light pill is an extremely rare item. Everyone only has one, but you're lucky. Don't worry, we have secret skills with us. We won't die so easily. Chuli glared at her. Don't say such inauspicious things. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. When Li Rulin said that, he had a vague feeling that something bad was about to happen. How about this? I'll go with you, Chuli said. Li Rulin shook her head. You've been sent here, and you're not allowed to participate in this war. I'll just sneak over, Chuli said. Li Rulin said. If the saint finds out, you'll be in trouble. Don't worry for nothing. Before you entered the Great Light Peak, I was already a patrol. I've been through so many battles. Chuli frowned as he looked at them. Suddenly, he appeared behind them in a flash and patted their backs. The 2 women were stunned for a moment and froze. Li Rulin cried out involuntarily. Zhao De, you're crazy. I don't think this trip is appropriate. It's better if we don't go. Chuli shook his head. I'm sorry, senior sisters. Do you know what you're doing? Li Rulin said angrily. Don't mess around. We've delayed the rescue of Falling Autumn City, and put the other senior sisters and senior brothers in danger. Even if we die 100 times, we won't be able to atone for it. Chuli scoffed. Before I care about their lives, I'll care about yours first. To him, apart from Li Rulin and Lu Zhen, the spirit medicine nursery, and Sun Lihua, he did not care about the rest of the people from the Holy Church of Light. It did not matter to him whether they lived or died. After all, the Holy Church of Light was his opponent. Lu Zhen said, "Junior brother Zhao, I know you care about us, but you're confused. If you do this, we'll be punished according to the church's rules. You won't be able to escape it. It's fine if you disobey orders during normal times, but if you disobey orders during wartime, you'll be beheaded immediately." Chuli scoffed. "You were forced to do this. I'm the one to blame. Whether we were forced or not, who can prove that?" Lu Zhen shook her head. "Moreover, we came here on our own. We've already broken the rules. Logically, we should have rushed to Falling Autumn City as soon as we received the order. I'll personally apologize to the saint." Chuli shook his head. "But I can't let you go this time. Zhao Dai," Li Rulin said angrily. "Let go of us now." Chuli shook his head without saying a word. He trusted his intuition. His sharp senses told him that it was inappropriate and inauspicious. Of course, he could not let the two women court death. Junior brother Zhao, you're putting us in danger," Lu Zhen said. "If we don't go to the rescue, we'll become a laughingstock even if the saint forgives us. We'll be too ashamed to stay at Great Light Peak because we're afraid of danger." "So be it," Chuli said. "It's better than dying. Zhao Dai, we won't die so easily," Li Rulin said impatiently. "Let go of us." Chuli shook his head. "I won't let go. Just give up and stay here obediently. You can trap us for a while, but can you trap us for the rest of our lives?" Lu Zhen sighed and said gently, "It's dangerous this time, so we're not going. What about next time? Are we going to retire at Great Light Peak instead of going every time? To be honest, we can't live like that." Chuli frowned at her. Lu Zhen said, "Instead of living a quiet life, it's better to die a heroic death. This is the way we've chosen to live." Chuli looked at Li Rulin. Li Rulin bit her lower lip and nodded slowly. "Yes, we could have chosen to stay in the peak, but we still chose to leave. We've encountered many dangers and survived them. Although Falling Autumn City is dangerous, we can't run away." Lu Zhen said, "If we run away this time, we'll run away the next time. We'll become completely useless and live a life worse than death." Li Rulin nodded. "Senior sister is right." Chuli sighed. "I'll accompany you then." Li Rulin frowned. "There's no need for that, junior brother Zhao. You can accompany us for a while, but are you going to accompany us forever?" Chuli blurted out. "There's nothing wrong with that." Chapter 1008. Chuli looked at her helplessly. When it came to personal beliefs, he really couldn't do anything about it. She chose this kind of life, and he couldn't force her to change because of danger. Moreover, she wasn't his woman. Lu Zhen said, "Junior brother Zhao, I know you like junior sister Li, and that's why you're acting this way, because you care too much about her. But we're patrols, and we have to face difficulties head-on. We're not as delicate as you think." Li Rulin turned around and glared at Lu Zhen. Chuli furrowed his brows and thought for a while. He then took out 2 jade tags from his inner pocket and handed them to the 2 women. "Take this. If your life is in danger, crush it." He made up his mind to take a risk and use God's limbs to save them. When the time came, he would just say that he had been following them. It was extremely risky to use God's limbs. There were only 2 or 3 people in the world who had successfully cultivated God's limbs, and they were all monks from the Titanium Temple. The remaining one was Chu Li. If he were to be recognized when he used it, his identity would be exposed. Li Rulin took it without hesitation. "All right, we'll crush it if there's any danger. We'll leave first." Lu Zhen took it and sized it up before putting it away. She smiled and said, "Junior brother Zhao, we'll come back to see you after we've completed our mission." Chu Li nodded. With this jade token, if there was any danger, he would be able to rush over immediately. The effect was almost the same as him secretly following them. Finally, he felt a little more at ease. Li Rulin walked up to him and patted his shoulder. She chuckled and said, "You, calm down. Don't provoke the saint anymore. The saint is running out of patience with you. Behave yourself for a while." Chu Li said, "I've been very honest." "Then stop killing people and causing trouble," Li Rulin said in annoyance. "The Holy Church needs to join forces with the other 3 sects to deal with the Qiu dynasty. What will the White Tiger sect think after what you've done? The impact is huge." Chu Li furrowed his brows and nodded. Of course, he knew that he shouldn't cause trouble, but because of his detached mentality, he killed those who needed to be killed without any scruples. The Holy Maiden was truly a rare sight. Even though she was furious, she still sent people over to help him. She had originally intended to give him the cold shoulder for a while, but now she was probably disappointed and had completely given up. Chu Li shook his head as he watched the 2 women glide away. Walking in the martial arts world was a dance with death. No matter how strong one's martial arts was, if one was unlucky, one's life would still be in danger. Life and death were up to fate, and riches and honor were up to the heavens. Could it be that everything was destined? He took a deep breath and suppressed the ominous feeling in his heart. Then he walked out of the mansion and wandered around Gale City to vent his frustrations. So what if his martial arts were strong? He couldn't control the thoughts of others. It was because he didn't have enough power. A real man couldn't be powerless for a day. Gale City was exceptionally lively at night. The bright streets were bustling with activity as the citizens had to work during the day. At night, their families would go out for a stroll and relax. The Phoenix Goddess restaurant was bustling with noise and excitement. However, Chu Li had no intention of entering the brothel. Without Yu Ru and Bai Feng, the Phoenix Goddess brothel no longer held any interest in the place. Not long after he passed by the Phoenix Goddess brothel, his expression suddenly changed. The omniscient mirror inadvertently scanned Elder Song's residence. His figure flickered a few times and floated like the wind. He appeared in Old Song's residence and saw Old Song lying on the ground. He had been dead for a long time. He didn't touch Old Song's corpse. He just stood there and looked at it. All of Old Song's internal organs had been shattered. He could tell that it was the White Tiger killing skill that killed Old Song in one hit. This was obviously the work of the White Tiger sect. Could they have discovered that Old Song had revealed the White Tiger power? Chu Li became vigilant and turned to look at his surroundings. There were only a few martial arts masters within the observation range of the omniscient mirror. He suddenly focused his gaze and saw that there was no one around Old Song's residence. There was only an old beggar squatting at the end of the alley. There was also another beggar squatting at the corner of the alley behind Old Song's residence. These 2 beggars were old and clumsy. Their movements were slow, and they didn't have any killing intent. They didn't know any martial arts and were extremely ordinary people. That was why Chu Li didn't pay much attention to them before. However, he felt that something was wrong now. Thus, he activated the omniscient mirror and looked into their minds. Chu Li dashed out of Old Song's residence and headed toward the back door. The 2 beggars moved at the same time. Their body movement techniques were as fast as lightning, and they were about to catch up to him. Their inner energy still didn't fluctuate, and they seemed like ordinary people who didn't know martial arts. However, these two ordinary people's body movement techniques were extremely fast, and they were even faster than him. He didn't dare to use his divine power and only tried his best to use time steps. He flashed a few times and avoided being surrounded by the two beggars. Then he dashed in another direction. The two old men's body movement techniques were extremely fast, and they caught up to him in the blink of an eye. Their torn and dirty clothes fluttered in the wind, and they exuded a murderous aura. He already knew why the two were here. The White Tiger sect found that Zheng Yanwu's death was strange. He died without a sound, which was not how a 100-year-old martial arts master should die. Thus, they suspected that there was something wrong with Old Song. After interrogating him, Old Song confessed everything. They knew that Chu Li had obtained the inheritance of the White Tiger power. They didn't care much about Chu Li killing the White Tiger sect's disciples. After all, as a martial arts sect, fighting and killing were inevitable. However, obtaining the inheritance of the White Tiger sect was related to the foundation of the sect, so they couldn't tolerate it. Chu Li obtaining the White Tiger power was not a big deal. The most terrifying thing was that if the Holy Church of Light obtained the White Tiger power, the destruction of the White Tiger sect would be right in front of them. Therefore, they must kill Chu Li no matter what. These two fellows were 100-year-old martial arts masters who lived in seclusion. He suddenly turned in the air and dodged again. Two middle-aged men dressed like merchants rushed toward him from 200 meters away and attacked him together with the two beggars. The White Tiger sect didn't send 200-year-old martial arts masters, but 4. His heart tightened as he recalled the scene when he saved King Ping. The 100-year-old martial arts masters were far more powerful than his incarnation of Zhao De. If he was prepared and used the single slice of the universe, he would be able to stop 100-year-old martial arts master. Even 4 of them would not be able to stop him, and he would definitely lose. Now that he was unprepared and could not use God's limbs, the only thing he could do was to escape. The 4 of them had surrounded him, but he managed to escape from their encirclement. The 4 of them chased after him and shot toward Gale City. He wanted everyone to know about the existence of these 4 people, so that they would be wary of him. 400-year-old martial arts masters from the White Tiger sect were chasing after a branch leader. The Holy Church of Light would never let this go, so the White Tiger sect had to consider the consequences. He flew to the top of the Phoenix Goddess brothel and shouted, "The White Tiger sect is despicable. Come." The 4 of them chased after him, and Chu Li used his divine light fist. The 4 of them blocked it in disdain and did not slow down at all. Chu Li waved his hands, and 2 flying blades shot out. Ding ding! The 2 beggars swung their fists to deflect the flying blades. Their torn clothes fluttered like rubber balls. Chu Li's light blade was so powerful that they could not underestimate it. However, as long as they were vigilant and wore treasured armor, they were not afraid of the light blade. Nevertheless, they were very careful in dealing with it. Roar, roar! The 4 of them shot out White Tiger silhouettes at the same time. These 4 White Tiger silhouettes were extremely fast and were harder to deal with than the 4 of them. They caught up with Chu Li in an instant. Chu Li put his palms together and formed a tiger silhouette that was as clear as a real baby tiger. Although the tiger silhouette was only the size of a fist, it exuded an eerie aura like a young tiger roaring in the forest. It was not weak at all as it pounced on one of the tiger silhouettes. Chapter 1009. His tiger's silhouette flickered and became much thinner and dimmer. It was about to dissipate at any time, but it didn't. It continued to move forward to meet the third tiger silhouette. After colliding with it, it finally perished together with the third tiger silhouette and dissipated together. At this moment, one of the tiger silhouettes that the four people from the White Tiger sect had conjured crashed into his chest and lower abdomen. Bang! Bang! With two muffled sounds, he flew into the air. The force rushed into his body, and it was so solid that it was almost tangible. It wanted to tear his body apart, immediately injuring his internal organs. He spat out a mouthful of blood, which was like a mist. He circulated his inner energy and activated the inner energy of the White Tiger power, slowly dispersing the force of the White Tiger killing skill that was vibrating in all directions and trying to tear him apart. His inner energy was not as pure as the other two's, but there was a trace of killing intent in it. It was like a sharpened saber going against a sharpened saber. Although the opponent's saber was sharpened, it was firm and heavy. In terms of lethality, the sharpened saber was far inferior. However, when the two clashed, the sharpened saber might not have much of an advantage. Chu Li's internal organs were far tougher than an ordinary person's. In addition to that, he had the floating silkworm treasured clothing, so he could only suffer injuries and not die. If an ordinary grandmaster were to take 2 hits of the White Tiger killing skill, they would definitely die. Elder Song must have taken 1 hit and died immediately. He flew up, his hands forming the silhouette of a tiger in the air, and he controlled it to shoot towards one of them. The old beggar sneered. Showing off in front of an expert, Chu Li's cultivation level was not weak. If he had used the Great Light Scripture and the light blade against them, he would still have been a threat. However, he just had to use the White Tiger power that he had just learned against them. It was simply ridiculous. Had they cultivated for almost 100 years for nothing? He wanted to surpass them after practicing for less than a month. Since they were wearing treasured armors, even if the White Tiger killing skill were to land on them, it would be reduced by more than half, so there was nothing to worry about. Therefore, without any hesitation, they charged forward and condensed another tiger silhouette at the same time to chase after Chu Li. They wanted to perish together and see who would be able to defeat the other. Chu Li had seen through their thoughts and was about to take advantage of it. His hands kept opening and closing, once again forming 3 tiger silhouettes. He was multitasking, dodging the attacks of the 4 tiger silhouettes while controlling the 4 tiger silhouettes to attack the 2 old beggars and the 2 merchants. Bam, 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 bam. Chu Li was hit once, but he was unable to completely dodge the 4 tiger silhouettes. The other 4 elders were also unable to dodge his tiger's shadow. His spirit was strong, and his tiger shadow was faster than them. All 5 of them were sent flying, and at the same time, they coughed up clouds of blood mist in the air. The destructive power of Chu Li's White Tiger killing skill was astonishing, but it had been reduced by half by the White Tiger armor, so it was no longer as lethal when it landed on their bodies. Moreover, their cultivation levels were high, so they managed to offset some of the damage. Chu Li was injured again. Again. Chu Li scoffed. After spitting out the blood mist, he condensed the tiger silhouette again. Woo! Without hesitation, the 4 men joined their palms together and formed tiger silhouettes at the same time as Chu Li. Then, 4 tiger silhouettes shot towards him while his tiger silhouette shot towards one of the men. Bang! He flew up, and so did the other old beggar. When he flew into the air, the other 3 tiger silhouettes were hot on his heels like maggots attached to bones, causing him to groan inwardly. If it was a one-on-one battle, he might not necessarily be afraid. In fact, he might even be able to suppress one of them. The might of the white tiger power was astonishing, but if it was a 1-on-4 battle, he had no chance of winning. Bang, 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 bang. Muffled sounds could be heard continuously in the field as Chu Li was continuously sent flying. The Phoenix Goddess brothel had long heard their movements, and each of them peeked out to watch. The 4 of them fought from the rooftop of the Phoenix Goddess brothel to the rooftop next to it. Everyone in the Phoenix Goddess brothel could see it clearly, and they were in high spirits. It was rare to see a battle between grandmasters, and it was even more precious to masters who wanted to break through to the grandmaster's boundary. Chu Li realized that the situation was not good. If this continued, he would fall into an increasingly disadvantageous situation. This was not a joke. Even if he transformed into Chu Li, he had no chance of winning. The only way out was to escape. He swayed a little and ran outside. "I'll go to the Radiance clan." An old beggar scoffed. Chu Li sneered. "Go ahead. I'd like to see whether the Radiance clan has more disciples or the White Tiger sect has more disciples." The old beggar paused and scoffed angrily. "Then I'll kill you." Chu Li's words made him extremely fearful. He knew that Zhao De was ruthless when it came to killing people, so there was no need for him to take this risk. Therefore, he dropped the idea of killing the Radiance clan's disciples and decided to kill Zhao De first. Chu Li shouted, "The White Tiger sect is becoming more and more powerful. 400-year-old masters against me." The old beggar and the other 3 men's expressions changed slightly. Their attacks became fiercer as tiger silhouettes pounced on him crazily. Chu Li used time steps to escape quickly, but his voice echoed throughout half of Gale City. He dodged left and right and was hit by the white tiger killing skill from time to time. Eventually, he managed to escape into the forest outside the city. Instantly, the power of the white tiger killing skill was limited here like a fish diving into water. The trees were a huge obstacle for the white tiger silhouettes, and they would crash into them if they were not careful. It was extremely difficult for them to catch up to Chu Li. Outside, he would be hit by the white tiger killing skill from time to time and spit out a mouthful of blood. However, in the forest, he would not be hit for a long time, so the situation was much more relaxed. "Surround him and kill him," an old beggar said in a low voice. The other 3 men nodded. Hence, 2 of them chased after him, while the other 2 flanked him from both sides in an attempt to block him off. However, Chu Li was unusually slippery. He had already seen everything clearly with the omniscient mirror. As soon as they moved, he immediately changed his direction, and the encirclement was instantly broken. In the end, there were still 4 people behind him, and they could not form an encirclement. The 5 of them went round and round the wood. Chu Li's inner energy was abundant, and so were the 4 old men. They circled around endlessly from night to day, and from day to night. In the end, all distracting thoughts were gone, and there was only one thought left in their minds: catch up to him. Chu Li had no other choice. He was not a threat to them. Although the white tiger killing skill was strong, once it was used, he would usually be fighting against 4 people at once. The moonlight was like water, and Chu Li was still chasing after the 4 of them. Chu Li was still full of energy and did not show any signs of fatigue. The other 4 were the same. They had enough pills, so they ate something when they were hungry and drank some water when they were thirsty. The 4 of them took turns to rest, and it was enough for the 3 of them to chase after him together. They were also secretly surprised that Zhao De was so tenacious. Chu Li was also impressed. These 4 old men did not look old at all. To grandmasters, 100 years old was just middle age. They were in the prime of their lives, and their bodies were at their peak. Suddenly, he turned his head and roared. The stupefying howl was used in an unexpected moment. The four of them stopped moving. Chu Li shot out a blade from each of his hands. TSS, TSS. Two blades were shot at the foreheads of two people. Just as the blades were about to hit, the two of them shrunk their heads and avoided the blade. With a proud smile on their faces, they suddenly chased after Chu Li and closed in. Chu Li saw that the situation was not good, so he used the stupefying howl again. This time, the four of them did not hesitate and closed in. Four tiger shadows shot out, and there was no way to avoid them. Chapter 1010. Chu Li spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. The bitterness was indescribable. They were wearing soul-suppressing jades. This god-suppressing jade could restrain the Tian Luo Sect's antique art. His mentality was strong, and the stupefying howl was powerful enough, but he could not break through the protection of the god-suppressing jade. There was no invincible martial art in the world. Every martial art had a way to counter it. For example, the flying knife could be countered by treasured armor, and the god-stunning howl could be countered by the god-suppressing jade. However, the god-suppressing jade was extremely precious. It was even rarer and more precious than treasured armor. Not only did the God-stupefying howl not gain any advantage, but he also suffered a great loss. The two white tiger killing skills were the power that they had deliberately condensed, so their power was twice as strong as the previous one, causing him to suffer a rather heavy injury. Bam! 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 4 tiger silhouettes formed from the white tiger killing skill were extremely agile. They went around the trees and crashed into Chu Li. Chu Li did not manage to avoid it completely and was sent flying again. The 2 elders had already used their secret techniques. The white tiger's silhouette speed was extraordinarily fast, and its power was astonishing. After taking a few hits, his tendons and bones were injured, affecting his circulation. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were in severe pain. He almost couldn't help but want to use God's feet, but he didn't dare to do so. He gritted his teeth and activated the secret technique of great light. His speed suddenly increased, but he still could not shake off the 4 elders. He had no choice but to head toward the peak of the mountain. The mountain was tall and majestic. In the blink of an eye, the 5 of them arrived at the peak of the mountain and arrived at a steep cliff. At the bottom of the cliff was a deep valley. At first glance, he could only see the vast white fog. Even with his eyesight, he couldn't see the bottom of the valley. At this moment, he was standing on a rock at the top of the mountain, sneering at the 4 of them. The 4 elders fanned out and slowly approached him. Chu Li scoffed. "You're ruthless enough to send 4 hidden masters to kill me. You've learned something that you shouldn't have," an old beggar said in a deep voice. "How dare you secretly learn the martial arts of the White Tiger sect?" Chu Li replied, "The martial arts of the White Tiger sect aren't that great anyway. What's the big deal about learning it? The White Tiger power is the foundation of our White Tiger sect. You're courting death if you want to learn it." The old beggar was unkempt and dirty, so no one could see his true face. He shook his head and said, "Isn't your saintess more capable than you? Why didn't they covet our White Tiger power?" Chu Li shook his head. "The saint is too lazy to learn in secret." "Humph, that's because Sun Mingwen knows that if she stealthily learns our White Tiger power, the 2 sects will fight to the death." The old beggar scoffed. "The Holy Church of Light may be powerful, but the White Tiger sect isn't to be trifled with. Come on, you guys." Chu Li curled his lips and said, "Look at what you've done with the White Tiger power." His words caused the expressions of the other 4 to change slightly. They had also noticed the peculiarity of Chu Li's White Tiger power. Although it was not pure enough, its power was extraordinary. More importantly, he had only cultivated for a few days, yet he was already so powerful. It was obvious that he was on the right path. This was what the White Tiger sect had been pursuing all this while. "Zhao De, have you comprehended the White Tiger power?" the old beggar asked in a deep voice. Chu Li said, "What's so difficult about it? It's a piece of cake for me." "Are you willing to join the White Tiger sect?" the old beggar scoffed. "We'll grant you the position of an elder. It'll be much better than being in the Holy Church of Light. You're in an awkward situation in the Holy Church of Light. The saint doesn't like you, and the disciples don't accept you. You're all alone. However, if you join the White Tiger sect, you won't be like this. The sect leader will value you greatly. There's no need for that." Chu Li shook his head. "If I join the White Tiger sect, you won't be able to protect me. The Holy Church of Light will never let a traitor go. You can live in seclusion on our mountain," the old beggar said. "No matter how powerful the Holy Church of Light is, they won't be able to break into White Tiger Peak. Staying on White Tiger Peak is worse than death." Chu Li shook his head. "I don't want to live in seclusion." "Then you'll die today," the old beggar said coldly. Chu Li smiled. "So what if I die?" You guys don't have the ability. Fine. The old beggar scoffed. Since you're so loyal to the Holy Church of Light, you shall die. The four of them placed their hands on the shoulders of the people next to them and pushed with their other hands. Four palm energies converged in the air and formed a vast wave of energy that surged toward Chu Li. There was no way to avoid it. Bang! Chu Li was like a ball that was hit. In the blink of an eye, he was shot out of the mountain and fell into the unfathomable valley. Chu Li did not expect their final attack to be so powerful. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood as he was severely injured. With so many injuries stacked on top of each other, even if his body was made of steel, he would not be able to withstand it. His vision darkened as he fell. The four of them flew out and fell with him. In the air, they formed four white tiger silhouettes and shot them at Chu Li. This time, there were no more obstacles. Although he knew he had to dodge, Chu Li's vision darkened. He did not have the strength. Bang, 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 bang. The tiger silhouettes hit him. If it were not for the floating silkworm treasured clothing, he would have been killed. Even with the floating silkworm treasured clothing, he was still seriously injured. There were several times when he wanted to use God's limbs, but he could not because they were behind him. He could only desperately activate the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. Their inner energy was too pure, so the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture's conversion was slow. If the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture's mastery was higher, their inner energy would not be able to harm him. Unfortunately, his understanding of the Scripture was not deep enough, so he could only convert a little. Bang, 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 bang. They kept hitting Chu Li, hoping to kill him in one go. Chu Li had no choice but to activate the life and death scripture, allowing endless spiritual energy to flow into his body to nourish his body and heal his injuries. Otherwise, he would really be beaten to death. He suddenly turned around and faced the sky, waving his hands. Chi blades shot out one after another. The four of them panicked. They were too close to Chu Li and had been thinking about how to kill him, but they did not expect him to counterattack. TSS, 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 TSS. Chu Li's energy blades seemed endless as they kept shooting out, forcing them to use their fists to block the energy blades. Bang! Chu Li fell into a deep pond, then quickly emerged from the water and went into the forest next to it. Bang, 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 bang. The four elders also fell into the deep pond. When they emerged from the water, Chu Li had already disappeared. Chase him. He must have gone into the forest. The four of them entered the forest again. Their tracking skills were very good. For the next 2 days, Chu Li desperately fled toward the Great Light Peak under their pursuit. The four of them knew that once Chu Li reached the Great Light Peak, they would not have a chance to chase after him anymore. Therefore, they activated their secret skills and beat him until he kept vomiting blood. Chu Li relied on his strong body to persevere and run with all his might. In the evening, when the sun was setting, Chu Li fled into the forest while the four of them chased after him. Chu Li's clothes were tattered, making him look like a beggar. His face was as pale as a sheet, and his breathing was heavy, but his body movement technique was still very fast. The four people behind him were not much better. They were exhausted, and no matter how strong their physical strength was, after 3 days of relentless pursuit, their faces were covered with frost. Chapter 10:11. The four elders behind him stopped abruptly. Their bodies tensed up as they looked at the forest in front of Chu Li with a serious expression. Chu Li laughed out loud. "Ha, I'm not dead yet." The four elders from White Tiger sect slowly retreated and wanted to leave. Chu Li shouted, "My saint, you're finally here." "I'm too early." Sun Mingyue appeared in front of Chu Li in a flash. She was dressed in a white tunic and had a white veil covering her face. She looked as graceful as a fairy and only revealed a pair of almond-shaped eyes as she stared coldly at the four elders from White Tiger sect. The four elders looked serious as they cursed in their hearts. They did not expect Sun Mingyue to personally come. It seemed that the Holy Church of Light still valued Zhao De very much. Sun Mingyue was a person who had to deal with numerous affairs every day, yet she had the time to care about a mere branch leader. Chuli sat on the ground. "My saint, if you didn't come over, I would have lost my life. Logically speaking, I should have come out before you were about to die," Sun Mingyue said coldly. "I'll teach you a lesson." "Ah, now I know." Chuli waved his hand. "These people from White Tiger sect are very powerful. I can't afford to offend them. It's good that you know." Sun Mingyue scoffed and looked up at the four elders who were slowly retreating. Four hidden masters came to kill a branch leader. What is the White Tiger sect trying to do? He killed junior brother Zheng. We have to avenge him. One of the old beggars scoffed. A life and death battle only involves oneself and no one else, Sun Mingyue said coldly. Is the White Tiger sect going to break this rule? This young man is too despicable. We must kill him, the old beggars said. Sun Mingyue shook her head. You've broken the rule. Don't blame me for being ruthless. She didn't give the four of them a chance to speak before lightly striking out with her fist. It was soundless and light, and her jade-white fist seemed like a piece of white jade that had been smeared with rouge under the setting sun, and it emitted a moving brilliance. The four elders looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They put their hands on each other's shoulders again and pushed their palms out together. Bang! There was a loud sound. The four old men were sent flying. Sun Mingyue stood there motionlessly, with one hand clasped behind her back. She looked at them indifferently, graceful and graceful. Uffed! The four elders spat out blood and used the momentum to escape. Humph! Sun Mingyue snorted lightly and suddenly disappeared from where she was. She reappeared 100 meters away and stood in front of the four old men. Then she lightly threw out 4 punches. Bam! 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 The 4 of them were sent flying again, heading in Chu Li's direction. Chu Li sat on the ground and threw out 4 blades. The 4 of them spat out blood and flew backward with their backs facing Chu Li. They wanted to turn their heads to look, but their injuries rendered them powerless. The flying blades pierced through their backs and went through their throats without any resistance. The 4 of them fell to the ground, struggling unwillingly. They stretched out their hands to seal their acupoints and took out spirit pills. Chu Li glided over and waved his hand again. The blades of qi shot into their eyes and drilled into their brains, turning into a force that minced their brains. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. He laid limply on the ground and remained motionless. He only had the strength to breathe. "I've finally killed them." Sun Mingyue appeared in front of him in a flash. She lowered her head and looked at him. "You managed to escape from them. I underestimated you." Chu Li said, "Saint, you've always underestimated me." "Why do they want to kill you?" Sun Mingyue asked indifferently. Chu Li sighed helplessly. "Because I secretly learned the White Tiger power." He knew that Sun Mingyue could read people's minds. Of course, she could read their thoughts and knew why they wanted to kill him. He told her, without hesitation, to gain her trust. "You're quite capable," Sun Mingyue said. "You even stole the White Tiger power." She was very satisfied with Chu Li's answer. Chu Li smiled proudly. "What's so difficult about it? The key is how I do it. It's a piece of cake for others to think of it." Sun Mingyue shook her head. It was not difficult for those who were capable, but those who were incapable. This matter was extremely difficult, but he said it was insignificant. This was the difference between a person's intelligence and means of doing things. This Xiao Dea was arrogant and unruly, but he was a rare talent. However, the more intelligent a person was, the more they needed to be polished. Otherwise, they would get into big trouble. This time, he almost got into big trouble and lost his life. Fortunately, he was quick-witted and caused a ruckus in Gale City. Sun Mingwei received the news and rushed over. Fortunately, she arrived in time. Otherwise, he would have died. No matter how powerful he was, he would not have been able to fend off the attacks of 4 hidden masters. If Sun Mingwei was one step late, she might have had to collect his corpse. For so many years, the Holy Church of Light had been trying to understand the martial arts of the other 3 sections. However, because it was an inheritance through enlightenment, it was almost impossible for it to be passed on to outsiders. Outsiders could not obtain it either. An inheritance through enlightenment could not be restored with pen and paper because its essence could never be understood. It was like a dream. Once you tried to recall it, you would have a vague impression, but when you actually said it, it would be a blur. Chu Li was able to obtain a complete inheritance. This was something that could only be encountered by chance. How did you get it? Sun Mingwei asked. Chu Li told her what happened. Sun Mingwei frowned. You only got the incantation, but you didn't get the essence. Chu Li said, actually, it was enough to get the incantation. Their visualization was wrong, so it was better for them to visualize it themselves. They imagined a tiger as a cat. How dare they? I've seen a tiger before. People say that a spirit tiger is 10 times more powerful than a normal tiger, so I visualized it as 10 times more powerful. Sun Mingwei pondered. Can the white tiger power be cultivated this way? It's much more powerful than theirs. Chu Li curled his lips. The white tiger power that they cultivated has no power at all. You talk big. Sun Mingwei shook her head. You should heal your injuries first. Chu Li took out a jade bottle from his inner pocket, poured out 2 pills, and popped them into his mouth. Sun Mingwei said, I heard that you've refined a lot of light pills. Chu Li nodded. Sun Mingwei scoffed and did not say anything else. She became angry at the mention of this. Chu Li's talent in alchemy was too shocking, but he did not refine pills. It was a reckless waste of resources. She went behind Chu Li and sat down gracefully. She did not care about the dirt on the ground that had dirted her white shirt. Instead, she placed her palm on his back. Chu Li knew what she was trying to do. She was treating his injuries and taking the opportunity to observe his cultivation level and the condition of his injuries. Fortunately, apart from the life and death scripture, he did not use any of Chu Li's skills this time. He only used Xiao De's strength, so he was severely injured. Sun Mingwei's inner energy was extremely pure. Her energy, which was as cool as water, seeped into his body and rapidly helped him heal his injuries and repair his body. Time passed slowly and silently. When dusk arrived, Sun Mingwei slowly withdrew her palm and looked at the back of Chu Li's head that was steaming. She sighed softly. Chu Li's cultivation level had almost recovered. The inner energy of the white tiger power in his body was indeed powerful. After a while, Chu Li opened his eyes and let out a long sigh. A puff of white air shot out like an arrow. Sun Mingwei said, Your injuries need some time to heal. Go back to the Great Light Peak. Chu Li nodded. I want to go back to the spirit medicine nursery. Go, Sun Mingwei said. He stood up and went back to the Great Light Peak with Sun Mingwei. Chapter 10:12. P.S. Update complete. Happy Mid-Autumn Festival. Sun Mingwe frowned. Why? She was the one who commanded the troops and disliked interference the most. Mo Qianjun has a grudge against me. He'll vent his anger on them, Chu Li said. Moreover, falling Autumn City is too dangerous for them. Once Xishan appears, they won't be able to fight back. Someone will deal with Monk Xishan, Sun Mingwe said. Chu Li shook his head. The person you sent to deal with Monk Xishan might not be able to find him. He's very cunning. Falling Autumn City is short of manpower. Most patrols have gone there. Sun Mingwe shook her head. Moreover, I don't believe that altar leader Mo will use his position to avenge his personal grudge. After all, you're his only enemy. You don't know Mo Qianjun well, do you? Chu Li scoffed. He looks heroic, but he's narrow-minded. He'll definitely take revenge on senior sister Li. He won't hurt her no matter what, Sun Mingwe said. Humph, that might not be the case, Chu Li said. Sun Mingwe cast a sidelong glance at him, revealing an impatient expression. Chu Li knew that it would be counterproductive if he said anything else. He scoffed and stopped talking. Since he had already sent his men, it was useless to say anything else. The two returned to Great Light Peak. Chu Li went to the spirit medicine nursery to heal, while Sun Mingwe returned to Divine Light Basilica. In the early morning, Chu Li was sitting in his small house to heal when someone knocked on his door. Chu Li said, "Come in." Ji Xian strode in with red eyes. "Junior brother Zhao." Chu Li noticed that something was wrong. "What happened?" Junior sister Li entered Great Light Surpassing State. Ji Xian almost choked. "Impossible." Chu Li frowned. "Are you saying that senior sister Li is dead?" "Yes, she entered Great Light Surpassing State with senior sister Lu." Ji Xian gritted his teeth and nodded slowly. Chu Li shook his head. "Don't joke around," Ji Xian said. "Junior brother Zhao, do you think I would joke about this?" Chu Li's face darkened. Impossible. He knew that people in the martial arts world danced with death, but his good friends never died. He had spirit pills and the eclipse purloin technique. That was why he had never experienced the death of his friends. He felt that Li Rulan's trip was ominous, but he had already made ample preparations. He had given them the jade pendant and planned to unleash his god's limbs at the risk of exposing himself to save their lives at the critical moment. Logically they still had the light pill. He should have been absolutely safe with these methods, before the battle, but he still died. Wouldn't die no matter how heavy their injuries were. Monk Xishan, unless their heads were directly chopped gritted off. His teeth. However, as long as they weren't afraid of being injured, they could trade injuries for injuries. And it was almost impossible for them to be beheaded. And said, "I'm useless, and I can't avenge junior sister Li. I can only rely on you, junior brother Zhao. You must kill Baldi Xishan, or junior sister Li won't be able to rest in peace." Chu Li asked, "Have they really entered Great Light Surpassing State?" They activated the secret technique of Great Light and eventually transformed into a beam of light that entered the Great Light Surpassing State. Ji Xian nodded slowly. This comforted him. For those who cultivated the Great Light Scripture, it was all for this final step to be able to step into the Great Light Surpassing State and escape the cycle of reincarnation. Once they entered the Surpassing State, they would continue to cultivate, and there would still be a chance for them to survive. Chu Li's face darkened, and he did not say a word. Who knew what was going on in the Great Light Surpassing State? However, to this world, Li Rulan and Lu Zhen were already dead. He had been trying to accept this piece of news, but he always felt that it was unreal. It was as if Ji Xian was just joking and would soon tell him that junior sister Li was still alive because someone else had made a mistake. After a while, he said in a deep voice, They met monk Jishan before they even reached Falling Autumn City. They died in Falling Autumn City. Ji Xian shook his head. Chu Li asked, the strength of Falling Autumn City hasn't increased. The Holy Church has already sent out law King Feng Qingyang. Ji Xian scoffed. However, I heard that the priest couldn't make it in time and got entangled. By the time the priest arrived, junior sister Li and junior sister Lu had already ascended into the sky. Chu Li gritted his teeth, stood up and walked out. Junior brother, Zhao. Ji Xian immediately called out. Chu Li turned to look at him. Ji Xian asked, Junior brother Zhao, where are you going? I'm going to look for the saint. Chu Li said coldly. Why? Ji Xian quickly asked. Find out what exactly happened, Chu Li said coldly. Ji Xian said, when junior sister Li was alive, she was afraid that you'd cause trouble. She told me several times that if she's not around, I'd advise you to act calmly and not be emotional. Chu Li sneered. Can I find out how senior sister Li died? The saint isn't in a good mood either. Ji Xian said, it's not wise to look for her now. Chu Li scoffed. I'm in a worse mood. After he said that, he turned around and strode out. He was extremely fast. Along the way, he bumped into a few disciples who entered the mountain with him. They greeted him, but he ignored them and went straight to Divine Light Basilica with a gloomy face. Outside Divine Light Basilica, a few middle-aged men stood at the bottom of the steps. They were silent, and the atmosphere was depressing. When they saw Chu Li, they ignored him and continued to stare at the basilica. Chu Li did not barge in directly, but waited outside. A moment later, the girl in green fluttered out. Altar Leader Jing, please come in. A middle-aged man slowly walked up the steps and entered Divine Light Basilica, disappearing before their eyes. Chu Li quickly said, Senior sister, I want to see the saint. The girl in green glanced at him. Junior brother Zhao, let's do it another day. It's about senior sister Li and senior sister Lu. Chu Li said. The girl in green said, the saint has summoned a few altar leaders and priests to talk about this. Junior brother Zhao, don't be anxious. Go back and wait. Chu Li shook his head. I can't wait. I want to know how senior sister Li and senior sister Lu died. The girl in green frowned at him and sighed. The saint is investigating. The details are not clear yet, but senior sister Li and senior sister Lu won't die in vain. Chu Li remained silent for a while before he gave a fist salute. Then he turned around and went down Great Light Peak to Falling Autumn City. Even at this time of grief and indignation, he did not use God's limbs. Instead, he desperately urged his light body technique to rush to Falling Autumn City. He wanted to find out how the two women died and avenge them. This was the mystery of the heavenly demonic power. The more emotional he was, the more he could break away from his original identity and completely transform into the person he was today. He did not sleep or rest for 2 days and arrived at Falling Autumn City in the evening. Under the setting sun, Falling Autumn City looked bleak and shabby. Chu Li entered the city silently, but did not go to the town defense prefecture. In a small courtyard, Bai Feng lazily reclined on a low couch. Her right arm was bandaged, and her aura was unstable. Her injuries were serious. Bai Feng was not surprised to see Chu Li appear silently in her courtyard. Instead, she sighed. You're here. I want to know how senior sister Li and senior sister Lu died. Chu Li gave a fist salute and asked, Senior Bai, do you know? Bai Feng nodded. I do. Chu Li said, please tell me in detail. Chapter 10:13. Chuli asked, Monk Zhishan is here again? This time, it's not just Monk Zhishan. There are also experts from Haitsong Mountain and Royal Blade Palace. We were caught off guard. Miss Li and Miss Lu used their secret skills to sacrifice themselves to kill the enemies. That's why we were able to stabilize ourselves and not be defeated in the end. By Feng's side, if they hadn't risked their lives to fight for their lives, I'm afraid Falling Autumn City would have fallen into the hands of the Qiu dynasty. Why are they the ones risking their lives? Chuli asked. Isn't it someone else? The two of them were on duty that night, Bai Feng said with a frown. So they felt that they had the most responsibility, right? Where's Alter Leader Mo? What did he say? Chuli scoffed. Bai Feng said, as for him, he didn't say much. He only said that the two women were dozing off, and that they had messed up the important matter and harmed everyone. Seeing that Chu Li's face had darkened, she hurriedly advised. As an altar leader, it's inevitable for him to vent his anger on others. She knew Chu Li's temper very well. Once he was angry, he would not care about anything and would do anything. For all she knew, he might even cause trouble for Mo Qianjun. Mo Qianjun's martial arts were very powerful, and he would not be able to deal with him. Moreover, the Holy Church of Light also had its own rules that forbade them from killing each other. Otherwise, they would be punished according to the church rules. The lightest punishment would be the crippling of their martial arts and expelling them from the church, while the most severe punishment would be death. Chu Li said coldly, Mo Qianjun has always regarded them as a thorn in his side. He's clearly trying to provoke them into risking their lives. He deserves to die. Not really, Bai Feng said. Although Mo Qianjun doesn't have a big heart, he's still reliable at crucial times. He wouldn't do something that would cost him his own life. That's because you don't know what kind of person he is. Senior Bai, Chu Li gritted his teeth. I'll interrogate him properly, Bai Feng said. Young Zhao, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Mo Qianjuan's status is higher than yours, and his martial arts are stronger than yours. You won't have a good ending if you go against him. In the end, they were definitely all young martial arts masters, but their martial arts were so powerful that they could not fight back. I'll take my leave first. Monk Zhishan interfered and used the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture to prevent them from working together. Take care of yourself. The other two young martial arts masters were not inferior to him forced a smile. So they were eventually defeated one by one in his heart. The Tian Luo Feng's mind lost another martial arts master. The more than 10 martial arts masters were facing and off the Holy Church of Light lost two. If it wasn't for Mo Qianjun's and a saber-wielding master, the two women wouldn't have been the ones to lose their lives. Mo Qianjun was cultivating in his own courtyard. The late autumn flowers and leaves had already fallen to the ground, drifting down from time to time, slowly landing on the ground. He moved his palms slowly, and the broken branches and withered leaves on the ground rolled along with his palms. Suddenly, there was a flash, and Chu Li appeared. Mo Qianjun glanced at him. His palms didn't stop as he said indifferently, You're here? Mo Qianjun, you're the one who killed Senior Sister Li and Senior Sister Lu. Chu Li said coldly. Mo Qianjun chuckled, shook his head, and said, You're too unreliable. You know it. Chu Li scoffed. I'll report you to the saint and confront her face to face. I'll let the saint see your sinister thoughts and see if you're worthy of being an altar leader. Mo Qianjun said, indifferently, I can't get away from this. Do you think the saint will transfer me back just because of what you said? You're dreaming. Chu Li laughed coldly. I'll tell the saint that you colluded with the enemy and colluded with the Qiu dynasty to harm the church's disciples. That's why Falling Autumn City is in danger. Do you think the saint will summon you back to question you? Chu Li wanted to kill Mo Qianjun, but he wouldn't kill him like this. It was the same as killing someone, but the person who made the first move was different. If Mo Qianjun killed him first, Chu Li would be able to avoid the punishment of beheading. As for other punishments, such as being crippled of his martial arts, those were trivial. Chu Li would rather have his martial arts crippled than to kill Mo Qianjun and avenge Li Rulin and Lu Zhan. Mo Qianjun's expression remained unchanged as he smiled. Do you think the saint will believe your nonsense? If it's that easy to summon an altar leader back, the Holy Church would have been in chaos. You should just give up. Chu Li's heart trembled. This was a vicious move. Although it was a false accusation, it was troublesome. Chu Li said, "The saint won't believe it if someone else says it, but I'm different. Let's take a gamble and see if the saint will believe it. As long as I stand in front of the saint, Mo Qianjun, your evil intentions will be exposed." "I don't have any evil intentions," Mo Qianjun said indifferently. "It's just a normal reprimand. You, on the other hand, are abandoning righteousness because of your personal feelings. Do you know how critical the situation is now? If anything happens to me, falling Autumn City will fall immediately." Chu Li smiled faintly. "You think too highly of yourself." "Humph, if falling Autumn City falls, you'll be guilty." Mo Qianjun glared at him coldly. Chu Li said, "With the priest here, an altar leader like you is nothing. The priest has just arrived, so he can't keep the situation under control." Mo Qianjun said, "For the time being, I can't command him like my own arm, which will give him an opportunity. I advise you to find another time to deal with me." Chu Li said indifferently, "I'll return to Great Light Peak immediately and report to the saint." Chu Li turned around and left. His shackles in the Holy Church of Light were Li Rulin, Song Yuya, and Sun Lihua. He could not be bothered with the lives of the others. Once Li Rulin was dead, he no longer had any scruples about the Holy Church of Light. He had completely cast aside his shackles and became a true enemy. He did not care if falling Autumn City would fall into the hands of the Qiu dynasty. The more intense the battle between the Li dynasty and the Qiu dynasty, the better. It would be best if both sides perished together. Mo Qianjun hurriedly said, "Wait." However, Chu Li did not care at all. In a flash, he left the courtyard and flew into another courtyard. Fang Qingyang, who was dressed in a green tunic, was leisurely practicing his swordsmanship. When he saw Chu Li suddenly appear, he frowned and stopped practicing. Chu Li fist saluted. "Greetings, Method King. You're Zhao Jianghe?" Fang Qingyang sized him up and nodded. "Why are you here?" He had heard of Zhao Jianghe's name. He was a genius among geniuses who was favored by the saint. He would become a priest in the future, but unfortunately, he had a bad temper and needed to be honed. When he saw Zhao Jianghe's gloomy expression and murderous aura around him, he knew that his cultivation level was extraordinary. Fang Qingyang sighed to himself. He had cultivated for less than a year, but he was a genius. It was no wonder he was favored by the saint. Chu Li said, "Altar leader Mo has a grudge against me. Because senior sister Li and senior sister Lu were close to me, he vented his anger on them. He deliberately harmed them and caused their deaths." "Do you have any evidence for this?" Fang Qingyang's expression darkened. "This is a serious crime." Chu Li said, "As long as he stands in front of the saint, he won't be able to hide from her." Fang Qingyang frowned. "This is a crucial time, so it's not a good time to cause trouble. However, if what you said is true, he won't be able to hide it from the saint. You don't have to worry, but don't go out and spread the news." Chu Li said, "I confronted altar leader Mo just now. He's already determined to kill me and will definitely assassinate me. If anything happens to me, it'll be Mo Qianjuan's doing. Don't talk nonsense. Alter leader, Mo won't do that. Fang Qingyang shook his head. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.